The soft glow of holographic equations Dr. Zephyr Quark's face as she hunched over her workstation, her wild silver hair forming a halo around her head. The clock on the wall silently ticked past 3 a.m., but time held little meaning in the cluttered sanctuary of her lab. Zephyr's fingers danced across the haptic interface, manipulating complex formulas with the grace of a concert pianist. To an outsider, the swirling mass of numbers and symbols would have been incomprehensible. But to Zephyr, it was a beautiful symphony of possibility, a theory that could change everything. "Come on, you beautiful bastard," she muttered, her mismatched eyes one electric blue, the other emerald green fixed on the central hologram. "Show me what you're hiding." The lab around her was a chaotic blend of cutting-edge technology and antique scientific instruments. A quantum computer hummed next to a brass sextant. Holographic displays flickered beside dogered textbooks from the early 20th century. It was a physical manifestation of Zephyr's unconventional approach, a fusion of the old and the new that her colleagues found utterly baffling. As she worked, the mocking voices of her peers echoed in her mind. "Quark has lost it, chasing ghosts in ancient theories. String theory is the future, Zephyr. Your ideas belong in a museum. The mad scientist strikes again. When will you give up this nonsense?" Zephyr's lips curled into a defiant smirk. They called her eccentric, a relic, a fool chasing impossible dreams. But she knew better. The key to faster-than-light travel wasn't in the cutting-edge theories that consumed the scientific community. It lay hidden in the outdated physics that everyone else had discarded. Suddenly, a soft chime emanated from her computer. Zephyr's eyes widened as she scanned the results. Her heart began to race, and her hands trembled with excitement. "No way," she breathed, double-checking the data. After all this time, the simulation showed a stable wormhole, created using principles that hadn't been seriously considered since the days of Einstein and Bohr. Zephyr had done it. She had found the theoretical framework for faster-than-light travel using physics that the scientific community had long abandoned. A laugh bubbled up from her chest, starting as a giggle and crescendoing into a full-blown cackle that echoed through the lab. Tears of joy streamed down her face as the magnitude of her discovery sank in. "Who's the mad scientist now?" she crowed, spinning in her chair with childlike glee. As the first light of dawn crept through the lab's windows, Dr. Zephyr Quark stood up, her exhaustion forgotten in the rush of triumph. She took a deep breath, savoring the moment before the storm that was about to hit the scientific world. "Time to rewrite the textbooks," she said with a mischievous grin, reaching for her ancient rotary phone to call her former mentor. The universe had just become humanity's playground, and Zephyr held the key to its gates. Little did she know, her discovery was about to catapult humanity into an adventure beyond their wildest dreams and their worst nightmares. As Zephyr's hand hovered over the rotary phone, a sudden jolt of inspiration struck her. Her eyes widened, and she gasped, stumbling back from her desk, as if physically pushed by the force of her realization. Wait just a quantum minute," she exclaimed, her mismatched eyes darting between her equations and the ancient physics textbooks strewn across her lab. In a frenzy of motion, Zephyr lunged for the holographic display, her fingers flying as she manipulated equations and diagrams. Classical physics formulas intertwined with quantum mechanical principles in a dance of mathematical beauty. "It's not about choosing one or the other," she muttered, her voice rising with excitement. "It's about the harmony between them." Zephyr's mind raced, connecting concepts that had seemed irreconcilable just moments before. The elegant simplicity of it all made her laugh out loud. "Einstein, you sly dog," she chuckled. "You were right all along. We just needed to look at it from a different angle." On the holographic display, a groundbreaking theory took shape. Classical physics provided the foundation for stable wormhole creation, while quantum mechanics offered the tools to manipulate and control them. The key lay in synchronizing these two seemingly contradictory branches of physics. Zephyr's breakthrough was the realization that the quantum foam at the Planck scale could be influenced by macroscopic classical fields, creating a bridge between the quantum and classical realms. By applying precisely calibrated electromagnetic frequencies to a specific region of spacetime, she could induce a controlled quantum fluctuation large enough to form a traversable wormhole. It's like conducting an orchestra of universes, Zephyr exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with wonder. Classical physics sets the stage, quantum mechanics provides the instruments, and together they create a symphony that bends reality itself. She spun back to her quantum computer, inputting this new understanding into her simulations. The results were staggering: stable, controllable wormholes that could be opened and closed at will, allowing for true faster-than-light travel. Dr. Zephyr Quark stood in the center of her chaotic lab, surrounded by the fruits of her unconventional approach, a revolutionary theory that would redefine the boundaries of physics and open up the cosmos to humanity. She threw her head back and let out a triumphant whoop that echoed through the lab. "We did it, you magnificent old coots," she shouted, gesturing to the portraits of Einstein, Bohr, and other physics pioneers that adorned her walls. "We've cracked the cosmic code." With a mischievous glint in her eyes, Zephyr picked up her antique rotary phone. It was time to shake the foundations of the scientific community and propel humanity into a new era of cosmic exploration. As she dialed, she couldn't suppress a grin. "Buckle up, universe," she murmured, "because humanity is about to take one giant leap across the stars." Dr. Quark strode down the polished hallways of Quantum Valley University, her wild hair and mismatched lab coat drawing curious glances from passing students. She clutched a holographic projector in one hand and a stack of old-fashioned paper notes in the other, a physical representation of her unconventional approach. As she approached the imposing oak doors of Dean Neutrina Voidhart's office, Zephyr took a deep breath, steeling herself for the battle ahead. She knocked firmly, her resolve unwavering. "Enter," came a stern voice from within. Zephyr pushed open the door to find Dean Voidhart seated behind an immaculate desk, her steel-gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, her expression one of practiced skepticism. "Dr. Quark," the dean said, her tone clipped, "I hope this isn't another one of your creative proposals." Zephyr grinned, undeterred. "Oh, it's creative all right, Dean Voidhart, but it's also revolutionary. I've done it, I've cracked the code for faster-than-light travel." The dean's eyebrow arched. "Not this again, Zephyr. We've been over this. Your obsession with outdated physics is becoming a liability to this institution." Undaunted, Zephyr activated her holographic projector, filling the air with swirling equations and diagrams. "Just hear me out, Neutrina. Look at these simulations. I've found a way to harmonize classical physics with quantum mechanics. It's the key to creating stable, controllable wormholes." Dean Voidhart leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as she examined the projections. For a moment, a flicker of interest crossed her face, quickly replaced by doubt. "This is intriguing, I'll admit," she said cautiously, "but it flies in the face of everything we know about modern physics. The funding committee would never approve such an outlandish project." Zephyr slammed her hands on the desk, her mismatched eyes blazing with passion. "That's exactly the problem. We've become so fixated on string theory and quantum loop gravity that we've forgotten the foundations our field was built on. This isn't just about FTL travel, Neutrina. It's about revolutionizing our understanding of the universe itself." The dean stood, pacing behind her desk. "Even if I believed you, Zephyr, which I'm not saying I do, the resources required for such a project would be astronomical. We can't justify that kind of expenditure on a theory based on, what did you call it, outdated physics." Zephyr's mind raced, knowing this was her one chance. She pulled out her trump card, a handwritten letter from her old mentor, Dr. Alistair Cosmos, one of the most respected physicists in the world. "Read this," she said, sliding the letter across the desk. "Dr. Cosmos has reviewed my work. He believes in it, Neutrina. He's even offered to co-sign the project proposal." Dean Voidhart's eyes widened as she read the letter. The endorsement from Dr. Cosmos was a game-changer, and they both knew it. After what felt like an eternity, the dean looked up, a mix of resignation and excitement in her eyes. "You really believe this could work, don't you?" Zephyr nodded solemnly. "With every fiber of my being." Dean Voidhart sighed, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Very well, Dr. Quark. I'll present your proposal to the funding committee. But I warn you, if this fails, it's both our necks on the line." Zephyr's face split into a wide grin. "Thank you, Neutrina. You won't regret this. We're about to make history." As she left the office, practically skipping with joy, Dr. Zephyr Quark knew that the real work was just beginning. She had won this battle, but the journey to the stars was only just starting. Little did she know, her breakthrough was about to attract attention from forces far beyond the halls of academia, forces that would change the course of human history forever. In the weeks following her breakthrough and the Dean's tentative approval, Dr. Zephyr Quark found herself in the challenging position of assembling a team capable of turning her revolutionary theory into reality. She knew she needed individuals who were not only brilliant, but also open-minded enough to embrace her unconventional approach. Her first recruit came in the form of Cosmos Gearshift, a prodigy in engineering with a penchant for thinking outside the box. Zephyr found him tinkering in the university's advanced fabrication lab, surrounded by a chaos of half-finished inventions and holographic blueprints. "Cosmos," Zephyr called out, ducking under a suspended anti-gravity prototype. "I've got a proposition that'll make everything else you're working on look like child's play." Cosmos, a lanky young man with cybernetic augmentations visible on his temples, looked up with interest. "Dr. Quark, I've heard rumors about your project, something about FTL travel using old-school physics." Zephyr grinned, activating her holographic projector to show him her designs. "How'd you like to build the first faster-than-light engine in human history?" Cosmos's eyes widened, his augmentations whirring as they processed the information before him. A slow smile spread across his face. "When do we start?" The next addition to the team came more unexpectedly. Dr. Nebula Stardust, a rising star in theoretical physics known for her work on quantum entanglement, approached Zephyr after a contentious department meeting where Zephyr's project had been hotly debated. "Dr. Quark," Nebula said, her voice low and intense, "I've been reviewing your equations. At first, I thought you were mad, but there's something there. Something beautiful." Zephyr raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "And here I thought you were firmly in the Zephyr's lost-her-mind camp, Dr. Stardust." Nebula shook her head, her dark eyes sparkling with excitement. "I was wrong. Your approach, it's unorthodox, yes, but it bridges gaps in our understanding that I've been struggling with for years. I want in." With Cosmos and Nebula on board, the core of Zephyr's team was formed. They commandeered a forgotten sub-basement of the physics building, transforming it into a lab that mirrored Zephyr's own chaotic workspace. Cutting-edge holographic displays stood next to refurbished analog equipment. Quantum computers hummed alongside restored vacuum tube assemblies. The trio worked tirelessly, each bringing their unique strengths to the project. Cosmos's engineering genius translated Zephyr's theories into tangible designs, while Nebula's insights into quantum mechanics helped refine and strengthen the underlying principles. Late one night, as they huddled around a holographic simulation of their first prototype, Zephyr looked at her team with pride. "You know," she said, her mismatched eyes twinkling, "they used to call me the mad scientist around here. What does that make you two?" Cosmos grinned, adjusting a holographic gear with a flick of his augmented fingers. "The mad engineer, of course." Nebula chuckled, her gaze fixed on a complex quantum equation. "I suppose that makes me the mad theorist?" Zephyr laughed, feeling a surge of affection for her unconventional team. "Well then, my fellow madcaps, let's show the world just how brilliant madness can be." As they returned to their work, the energy in the room was palpable. They all felt it, the sense that they were on the brink of something monumental, something that would change the course of human history. Little did they know, their progress was being watched with great interest, not just by their academic peers, but by forces far beyond the confines of Earth. forces that saw in their work both immense potential and grave danger. As Zephyr and her team raced towards their goal, unseen gears were turning, setting in motion events that would propel them into an adventure beyond their wildest imaginations. The basement lab hummed with nervous energy as Zephyr, Cosmos, and Nebula gathered around their prototype, a complex array of equipment that looked like a steampunk artist's fever dream. At its heart was a spherical chamber no larger than a basketball, surrounded by an intricate web of electromagnetic coils and quantum field generators. "All right, team," Zephyr said, her mismatched eyes gleaming with excitement. "This is it. Our first real test of the FTL drive. Cosmos, how are we looking?" Cosmos's cybernetic implants whirred as he double-checked the systems. "All green, Doc. The quantum foam agitator is primed, and the classical field harmonizers are synchronized." Nebula nodded, her fingers dancing across a holographic display. "Theoretical models are holding steady. If this works, we should see a microscopic wormhole form within the chamber." Zephyr took a deep breath. "Well then, let's make history. Initiating FTL drive test in 3, 2, 1. Activate." The lab filled with a low hum as power surged through the device. The air around the spherical chamber seemed to shimmer and distort, like heat waves on a summer road. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, suddenly, a pinprick of absolute darkness appeared in the center of the chamber. It grew rapidly, swirling and pulsating with otherworldly energy. "It's working," Nebula gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. "We've actually created a stable micro-wormhole." Cosmos whooped with joy, his augmentation struggling to process the unprecedented data flooding in. "The readings are off the charts. We've done it." Zephyr allowed herself a moment of triumph, grinning from ear to ear. But her elation was short-lived as she noticed something odd on the monitoring screens. "Wait a second. What's that energy signature?" Before anyone could respond, the wormhole began to fluctuate wildly. The humming intensified to a painful screech, and arcs of strange, multicolored lightning began to dance around the chamber. "Shut it down," Zephyr yelled over the noise. "Something's not right." Cosmos frantically worked the controls, but the system wasn't responding. "I can't. It's drawing power from somewhere else." Suddenly, the wormhole expanded explosively, engulfing the entire chamber in darkness. For a split second, the team caught a glimpse of something on the other side. Strange, twisting geometries and colors that shouldn't exist. Then, as abruptly as it had expanded, the wormhole collapsed in on itself with a thunderous crack. The lab plunged into darkness, save for the emergency lights casting an eerie red glow. As the team caught their breath, the gravity of what had just happened sank in. They had successfully created a wormhole, proving their FTL theory correct. But they had also encountered phenomena they couldn't explain. Is everyone okay?" Zephyr asked, her voice shaky. Nebula nodded, her face pale. "Yes, but what was that we saw? It didn't look like normal space." Cosmos was already examining the fried equipment. "Whatever it was, it overloaded our systems. The quantum foam agitator is completely burnt out." Zephyr ran a hand through her wild hair, her mind racing. "We did it. We actually did it. But we opened a door we don't fully understand," Nebula finished for her. The lab fell silent as the implications set in. They had proven their concept worked, but in doing so, they had glimpsed something beyond their comprehension. Something that hinted at greater mysteries and potentially greater dangers than they had ever imagined. As they began to assess the damage and analyze the data from their experiment, one thing became clear: their journey into the realm of FTL travel was just beginning, and it promised to be far more complex and perilous than they had ever anticipated. Little did they know, their successful test had not gone unnoticed. Somewhere in the vast expanse of the cosmos, ancient eyes had turned their attention to Earth, alerted by the brief tear in the fabric of space-time. The team's breakthrough was about to catapult them and all of humanity into a cosmic arena they were woefully unprepared for. Dr. Helios Dark Matter sat in his opulent office at the prestigious Celestial Institute, his fingers steepled under his chin as he watched the holographic news feed with growing irritation. The headline scrolling across the bottom of the screen made his blood boil. Quantum Valley University team achieves breakthrough in FTL travel. Impossible, he muttered, his voice dripping with disdain. As he listened to the excited newscaster describe the achievement of Dr. Zephyr Quark and her team, his scowl deepened. Helios had long considered himself the foremost authority on theoretical faster-than-light travel. His work on quantum tunneling and string theory had earned him accolades and funding, positioning him as the likely candidate to crack the FTL problem. The idea that Quark, with her ridiculous theories based on outdated physics, had beaten him to the punch was inconceivable. "Computer, pull up all available information on Dr. Quark's recent work," he commanded. Within seconds, his office was filled with floating holograms displaying articles, research papers, and data from the Quantum Valley team's experiments. As Helios pored over the information, his initial skepticism gave way to a grudging admiration, quickly followed by a surge of jealousy and anger. The elegance of Quark's solution, combining classical physics with quantum mechanics, was undeniable, but he couldn't accept it. He wouldn't. "This can't stand," he growled, rising from his chair. "Computer, schedule an emergency press conference for this afternoon. It's time to put an end to this farce." Hours later, Dr. Helios Dark Matter stood before a sea of holographic cameras and eager reporters. His tall, imposing figure was accentuated by his crisp, black suit, and his piercing gaze swept across the assembled media. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice smooth and authoritative, "I've called this press conference to address the recent claims made by Dr. Zephyr Quark and her team at Quantum Valley University regarding faster-than-light travel." He paused for effect, allowing the anticipation to build. "While I applaud Dr. Quark's enthusiasm, I must regrettably inform you that her so-called breakthrough is nothing more than a dangerous delusion. Her reliance on outdated physics not only flies in the face of modern scientific understanding, but poses a significant risk to those who might be tempted to pursue this line of research." Helios activated a holographic display, showing complex equations and simulations. "My team at the Celestial Institute has thoroughly analyzed the available data from Quantum Valley's experiments. Our findings indicate that Dr. Quark's approach is fundamentally flawed and potentially catastrophic if attempted on a larger scale." He continued, his voice growing more impassioned. "The anomalies reported in their experiment are clear signs of quantum instability, not successful FTL travel. Pursuing this line of research could lead to devastating consequences, potentially tearing the very fabric of space-time." As reporters began shouting questions, Helios raised a hand to quiet them. "I call upon the scientific community and regulatory bodies to immediately halt Dr. Quark's experiments. We cannot allow misguided enthusiasm to endanger our understanding of the universe or, indeed, our very existence." With a final, grave nod, he concluded, "Thank you. I'll now take your questions." As the press conference erupted into a frenzy of inquiries, Helios allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. He had sown the seeds of doubt, and he was confident they would take root quickly. Meanwhile, across the city, Dr. Zephyr Quark and her team watched the broadcast in stunned silence. The euphoria of their breakthrough evaporated, replaced by a mix of anger, disbelief, and determination. Zephyr's mismatched eyes flashed with defiance as she turned to her team. "Well, folks," she said, her voice tight with emotion, "it looks like we've got a fight on our hands. Are you with me?" Cosmos and Nebula nodded firmly, their faces set with resolve. They knew that the path to revolutionizing space travel had just become much more complicated, but they were ready for the challenge. Little did they know, the conflict brewing between Quark and Dark Matter was about to attract attention from forces far beyond Earth's scientific community, forces that would reshape the future of humanity's journey to the stars. The news of Dr. Zephyr Quark's FTL breakthrough spread across the globe like wildfire, igniting a firestorm of debate, excitement, and controversy. Despite Dr. Helio's dark matter's attempts to discredit their work, the Quantum Valley team found themselves at the center of a media frenzy. Scientific communities worldwide were split. Some hailed Zephyr's fusion of classical and quantum physics as revolutionary, while others, aligned with dark matter's view, dismissed it as dangerous pseudoscience. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like #FTL-Revolution and #QuarkHoax, as the public took sides in what was quickly becoming the scientific controversy of the century. Amidst this chaos, one figure watched the unfolding events with particular interest: Zenith Money Supernovae, the enigmatic trillionaire known for his outlandish investments in cutting-edge technology. From his orbital mansion, Zenith observed the Earth below, his cybernetically enhanced eyes gleaming with excitement. "Aria," he called to his AI assistant, "arrange a meeting with Dr. Quark and her team. It's time we joined this cosmic race." Back on Earth, Zephyr and her team were struggling to keep their project alive. D. Neutrina Voidheart, under pressure from the university board, had frozen their funding pending a full investigation into dark matter's claims. "This is ridiculous," Zephyr fumed, pacing their now quiet lab. Her wild hair seemed even more frazzled than usual, matching her agitated state. "We're on the verge of revolutionizing space travel, and they're worried about bad press." Cosmos Gearshift looked up from the partially disassembled FTL drive, his cybernetic implants whirring as he ran calculations. "We could try crowdfunding. I bet there are plenty of space enthusiasts who'd back us." Dr. Nebula Stardust shook her head, her dark eyes serious. "That won't be enough. We need serious capital to scale up our experiments and prove dark matter wrong." As if on cue, Zephyr's ancient rotary phone rang, startling them all. She answered it, her mismatched eyes widening as she listened. "You're kidding," she breathed, then turned to her team with a mix of shock and excitement. "Pack your bags, folks. We've just been invited to Zenith Money Supernovae's orbital mansion." The journey to Zenith's opulent space habitat was a blur of anticipation and nerves. As they stepped into his zero-gravity reception room, the team was awestruck by the panoramic view of Earth below. Zenith floated towards them, his silver hair forming a halo around his head in the microgravity. His cybernetic eyes scanned them, gathering data. "Dr. Quark," he said, his voice smooth and cultured, "your work has caused quite a stir. I must say, I find your approach fascinating." Zephyr, momentarily thrown off by the surreal setting, quickly regained her composure. "Mr. Money Supernovae, we appreciate your interest, but I have to ask, why are we here?" Zenith's lips curled into a smile. "Straight to the point. I like that." He gestured to a holographic display of the galaxy. "You see, I've always dreamed of humanity reaching the stars. Your FTL drive could make that dream a reality. I want to fund your project fully and without restrictions." The team exchanged shocked glances. This was beyond their wildest hopes. "However," Zenith continued, his tone growing serious, "I have one condition. I want the first FTL-capable ship, and I want to be on it." Zephyr's mind raced. This was their chance to prove their theory, to change the course of human history. But the risks? "Mr. Money Supernovae," she said carefully, "our technology is still experimental. The dangers—" Zenith cut her off with a wave of his hand. "Are precisely why I want to be involved. Humanity doesn't advance by playing it safe, Dr. Quark. We push boundaries. We take risks. Now, are you ready to make history?" Zephyr looked at Cosmos and Nebula, seeing her own determination reflected in their eyes. She turned back to Zenith and extended her hand. "Mr. Money Supernovae, you've got yourself a deal." As they shook hands, the Earth continued its serene rotation below, unaware that this moment would mark the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure and its greatest peril. The cosmic race was on, and the finish line lay somewhere among the stars. With Zenith Money Supernovae's backing, Dr. Quark and her team threw themselves into their work with renewed vigor. They relocated to a state-of-the-art facility provided by Zenith, nestled in a remote mountain range for privacy and security. Zephyr, ever conscious of the threats to their research, implemented stringent security measures. "Remember," she told Cosmos and Nebula as they set up their new lab, "dark matter and his ilk would love nothing more than to steal or sabotage our work. We trust no one outside this room." Cosmos nodded, his cybernetic implants whirring as he installed a cutting-edge security system of his own design. "Don't worry, Doc. I've got firewalls that would make a quantum computer weep." Nebula, meanwhile, focused on refining their theoretical models. Her dark eyes were often distant, lost in complex calculations. "The micro-wormhole was just the beginning," she mused. "Scaling up to a full-sized spacecraft presents challenges we haven't even imagined yet." As weeks turned into months, progress was swift, but not without setbacks. Late one night, as Zephyr pored over schematics for their prototype engine, an alarm blared through the facility. "We've got a breach," Cosmos yelled, his fingers flying over holographic controls. "Someone's trying to hack our mainframe." Zephyr sprang into action, her mismatched eyes blazing with determination. "Activate the quantum encryption protocols. Nebula, secure the theoretical models." For tense hours, they fought off the cyber attack, their systems barely holding against the onslaught. When it was finally over, they slumped in exhaustion. "That was too close," Nebula said, wiping sweat from her brow. "Do you think it was dark matter?" Zephyr shook her head grimly. "Maybe. Or maybe someone else. We've stirred up a hornet's nest with our work. We need to be more careful." Despite the challenges, their progress was undeniable. The prototype FTL drive grew from theoretical concept to physical reality. Zenith, true to his word, provided unlimited resources and shielded them from outside interference. As the first full-scale tests approached, tensions ran high. Zephyr found herself working around the clock, her wild hair even more disheveled than usual. Cosmos's augmentations were in constant overdrive, monitoring and adjusting the intricate machinery. Nebula barely slept, constantly refining their calculations to account for every possible variable. One evening, as they prepared for a crucial test, Zephyr gathered her team. "Listen up, you beautiful madcaps," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know we've already made history. We've proven that the impossible is possible, and no matter what dark matter or anyone else says, that can never be taken away from us." Cosmos grinned, his cybernetic eyes glowing with excitement. "Ah, Doc, you're gonna make me short-circuit." Nebula smiled softly, a rare break from her usual intense focus. "We couldn't have done it without you, Zephyr. Your crazy ideas brought us here." As they shared a moment of camaraderie, none of them could have predicted the cosmic storm that was about to engulf them. For beyond Earth, ancient eyes had been watching their progress with growing interest and alarm. The next day, as they initiated the first full-scale test of their FTL drive, they were unaware that their actions were about to catapult humanity onto a galactic stage it was woefully unprepared for. The boundaries between the known and the unknown were about to be shattered, and Dr. Zephyr Quark and her team would find themselves at the heart of a cosmic drama beyond their wildest imaginations. As the FTL drive hummed to life, the air crackling with potential, Zephyr took a deep breath. "All right, team," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Let's make some noise in the cosmos." Little did they know, the cosmos was about to answer back in ways they could never have anticipated. As the team prepared for their next crucial test, the facility's alarms suddenly blared to life, bathing the lab in pulsing red light. Cosmos's cybernetic implants whirred frantically as he accessed the security feeds. "We've got an intruder," he shouted over the din. "They've somehow bypassed the outer perimeter." Zephyr's mismatched eyes narrowed. "Nebula, secure the data. Cosmos, lock down the prototype." As her team scrambled to protect their work, Zephyr grabbed an experimental quantum disruptor she'd been tinkering with and headed towards the source of the disturbance. The corridors were eerily quiet save for the wailing alarms, the emergency lights casting long shadows that seemed to dance and twist. Rounding a corner, she came face to face with a figure clad entirely in black, their features obscured by a high-tech mask. In their hand was a device Zephyr recognized as a cutting-edge data siphon. "That's far enough," Zephyr called out, leveling her disruptor at the intruder. "I don't know who you are, but you've picked the wrong lab to rob." The figure turned slowly, their posture relaxed despite being caught. When they spoke, their voice was distorted by a modulator, adding an otherworldly quality to their words. "Dr. Zephyr Quark," the figure said, a hint of amusement in their tone. "Your reputation precedes you. I am Agent Obsidian Shadowweave, and I'm afraid I can't leave without your FTL plans." Zephyr's grip on her weapon tightened. "Shadowweave? Never heard of you. But if you think I'm handing over my life's work to some high-tech cat burglar, you're crazier than I am." Shadowweave chuckled, the sound unsettling through the voice modulator. "Oh, Doctor, if only you knew the forces you're dealing with. Your little experiment has attracted attention from entities far beyond your comprehension. I'm here to, shall we say, contain the situation." "Contain," Zephyr scoffed, her wild hair seeming to bristle with indignation. "We're on the verge of revolutionizing space travel, of opening up the cosmos to humanity. There's nothing to contain except maybe your overinflated ego." In a blur of motion, Shadowweave lunged forward. Zephyr fired her disruptor, but the agent moved with inhuman speed, dodging the blast. They grappled, Zephyr's unconventional fighting style born from years of lab accidents, matching Shadowweave's trained precision. As they fought, Shadowweave spoke again, their voice strained with effort. "You don't understand the dangers, Doctor. The universe is vast and ancient, filled with terrors your human mind can't fathom. Your FTL drive is a beacon, calling to things best left undisturbed." Zephyr managed to land a solid kick, pushing Shadowweave back. "And let me guess," she panted, "you're here to protect us. Sorry, but I don't buy it. Humanity's destiny lies among the stars, and I won't let you or anyone else hold us back." Shadowweave paused, their masked face tilted as if considering. "Your determination is admirable, Doctor, but it may doom us all." Before Zephyr could respond, a blast of energy from behind her struck Shadowweave, sending the agent crumpling to the ground. Zephyr turned to see Cosmos, his arm transformed into some kind of energy cannon. "Sorry I'm late to the party, Doc," he grinned. "Had to make sure the prototype was secure." As they secured the unconscious Shadowweave, Zephyr couldn't shake the agent's ominous words. What if there was some truth to their warnings? What forces had they truly awakened with their experiments? Nebula joined them, her face pale with concern. "The data's safe, but—" "Zephyr, who was that? What did they want?" Zephyr shook her head, her usual bravado tempered by a new sense of unease. "I don't know, Nebula, but I have a feeling our little project just got a lot more complicated." As they called Zenith's security team to deal with the intruder, Zephyr couldn't help but feel that they had just taken their first step into a much larger, more dangerous universe. The stars suddenly seemed a lot farther away and a lot less welcoming. But as she looked at her team Cosmos with his unwavering enthusiasm and Nebula with her quiet determination, Zephyr felt her resolve strengthen. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever cosmic forces they had stirred, they would face them together. "All right, team," she said, her voice firm. "Let's get back to work. We've got a universe to explore, and apparently, we've got some new variables to account for." As they returned to their lab, none of them noticed the small, alien device Shadowweave had managed to plant during the confrontation. A device that was now transmitting their every move to entities far beyond the reaches of Earth. Entities that were watching with growing interest and concern. With the security breach behind them and Zenith Money Supernavi's continued backing, Dr. Quark and her team threw themselves into the construction of humanity's first FTL-capable ship. The massive project took shape in a secret orbital shipyard, hidden from prying eyes and potential saboteurs. Zephyr, her wild hair now constantly restrained by a protective helmet, oversaw the integration of the FTL drive into the ship's systems. "We're writing history with every weld and circuit, folks," she'd often say, her mismatched eyes gleaming with excitement. Cosmos Gearshift was in his element, his cybernetic implants interfacing directly with the ship's advanced systems. "I've designed her to be more than just a ship, Doc," he explained one day, lovingly patting the hull. "The HSS Paradox is going to be a work of art." Dr. Nebula Stardust focused on the theoretical challenges, working tirelessly to ensure the ship could withstand the stresses of FTL travel. "We're venturing into unknown territory," she reminded the team. Every calculation, every simulation could mean the difference between triumph and catastrophe. As the Paradox neared completion, the team faced a new challenge: selecting a crew. Zenith insisted on being aboard for the maiden voyage, but they needed a pilot capable of handling the unprecedented capabilities of the ship. "We need someone unconventional," Zephyr mused during a team meeting. "Someone who can think outside the box when faced with the unknown." It was Zenith who found their pilot. "I've got just the person," he announced one day, his cybernetic eyes twinkling with mischief. Captain Aurora Stormrider. Aurora's reputation preceded her. A maverick pilot with a knack for pulling off the impossible, she had been drummed out of the global space force for her unorthodox methods and flagrant disregard for regulations. When she strode into the shipyard, her shock of neon blue hair and cocky grin immediately set her apart. "So," Aurora said, eyeing the Paradox with undisguised admiration, "this is the impossible ship. She's a beauty." Zephyr approached her, extending a hand. "Captain Stormrider, I'm Dr. Quark. Welcome to the team that's about to rewrite the laws of physics." Aurora's handshake was firm, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Doc, if half of what I've heard about this ship is true, you've already rewritten them. I'm just here to take her out for a spin." As the final preparations were made, tension and excitement built in equal measure. The HSS Paradox gleamed in the shipyard, its sleek design belying the revolutionary technology within. The FTL drive, heart of the ship, hummed with potential, ready to tear a hole in the fabric of space-time. The night before the scheduled launch, Zephyr gathered her expanded team: Cosmos, Nebula, Aurora, and Zenith in the ship's command center. "Tomorrow, we make history," she began, her voice filled with emotion. "We're about to take humanity's first real step into the cosmos. Whatever happens, whatever we find out there, know that each of you has played a crucial role in getting us here." Cosmos grinned, his cybernetic eyes glowing softly. "Ah, Doc, you're gonna make me rust." Nebula nodded solemnly, a rare smile on her face. "It's been an honor, Zephyr. Let's show the universe what humanity can do." Aurora leaned back in the pilot's seat, her posture relaxed but her eyes intense. "Just point me at the stars, folks. I'll get us there." Zenith, usually so composed, couldn't hide his excitement. "Dr. Quark, when I funded this project, I dreamed of this moment. You've turned that dream into reality." As they shared a moment of camaraderie, none of them could have predicted the true scale of the adventure that awaited them. For beyond the boundaries of known space, ancient forces stirred, alerted by the impending breach in the cosmic order. The HSS Paradox stood ready, a testament to human ingenuity and the unquenchable thirst for exploration. But as the countdown to launch began, the team was unaware that their journey would not only take them across vast distances, but also thrust them into the heart of a cosmic conflict as old as the universe itself. Zephyr took one last look at her team, her family of brilliant misfits. "All right, folks," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Let's go make some noise in the cosmos." Little did they know, the cosmos was poised to roar back in ways that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the universe and their place in it. As the countdown to launch entered its final hours, the HSS Paradox hummed with activity. Dr. Zephyr Quark moved through the ship, her wild hair barely contained by her helmet, checking and double-checking every system. Her mismatched eyes darted from screen to screen, her brilliant mind processing vast amounts of data. "Cosmos, how's the FTL drive looking?" she called over the comm. Cosmos's voice crackled back, tinged with excitement. "Purring like a kitten, Doc. We're green across the board." Nebula's calm tones followed. "Theoretical models are holding steady. We're as ready as we'll ever be." Zephyr nodded, allowing herself a small smile. Years of work, countless setbacks, and now they were on the cusp of making history. As she made her way to the bridge for final preparations, Zenith Money Supernovae approached, his cybernetic eyes glowing with an almost childlike excitement. "Dr. Quark," he said, "there's someone here to see you, in the private lounge." Zephyr's brow furrowed in confusion. She wasn't expecting any visitors. Curious and slightly apprehensive, she made her way to the lounge. As the door slid open, Zephyr froze. Standing by the viewport, gazing out at the Earth below, was a young woman with long, dark hair streaked with silver. She turned, and Zephyr found herself looking into eyes that mirrored her own heterochromia. "Lyra," Zephyr breathed, hardly daring to believe it. Lyra Quasar, Zephyr's estranged daughter, offered a hesitant smile. "Hi, Mom. It's been a while." The tension in the room was palpable. It had been years since they'd last spoken, their relationship strained by Zephyr's single-minded focus on her work and Lyra's resentment of always coming second to physics. "What are you doing here?" Zephyr asked, her voice a mix of joy and uncertainty. Lyra took a deep breath. "I couldn't let you go on this mission without saying goodbye, and maybe good luck." Zephyr felt tears welling up in her eyes. She took a step forward, then hesitated, unsure if her daughter would welcome an embrace. "Lyra, I'm so sorry. For everything. For not being there, for—" "Mom," Lyra interrupted, her own eyes glistening. "I know. I understand now. What you're doing, it's bigger than us. It's for all of humanity. I needed to see you before you go." The dam broke. Zephyr rushed forward, enveloping her daughter in a tight hug. They stood there, holding each other, years of hurt and misunderstanding melting away in the face of the monumental journey ahead. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," Lyra whispered. "You're about to change the world. Just come back, okay? We have a lot of catching up to do." Zephyr pulled back, cupping her daughter's face in her hands. "I promise, Lyra. When I get back, things will be different. We'll make up for lost time." As they said their goodbyes, Zephyr felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had always thought her greatest achievement would be cracking the secret of FTL travel. But in that moment, she realized that mending her relationship with her daughter was equally momentous. Returning to the bridge, Zephyr found her team waiting. Captain Aurora Stormrider sat at the helm, her neon blue hair a stark contrast to the ship's sleek interior. Cosmos and Nebula manned their stations, while Zenith stood back, watching with barely contained excitement. "Everything okay, Doc?" Aurora asked, noting the emotion in Zephyr's eyes. Zephyr nodded, composing herself. "Never better, Captain. Let's make history." As the final countdown began, Zephyr thought of Lyra watching from Earth. She silently vowed to return, not just for the sake of science, but for the chance to be the mother she should have been all along. The HSS Paradox hummed to life, its revolutionary engines powering up. Captain Stormrider's hands danced over the controls, a fierce grin on her face. "Course laid in, Doc," she announced, ready to punch a hole in the universe. Zephyr took one last look at the beautiful blue marble of Earth. "Ready as we'll ever be, Captain. Take us out." As the Paradox broke free from Earth's orbit, none of the crew could have imagined the wonders and terrors that awaited them in the vast, uncharted cosmos. Their journey was about to begin, and with it, a new chapter in human history and in Dr. Zephyr Quark's personal story was about to unfold. The HSS Paradox glided smoothly away from Earth's orbit, its sleek form gleaming in the starlight. On the bridge, an air of tense excitement permeated the atmosphere. Dr. Zephyr Quark stood at the center, her wild hair barely contained by her helmet, her mismatched eyes darting between holographic displays. "All systems nominal," Cosmos reported, his cybernetic implants whirring as he interfaced directly with the ship. FTL drive is primed and ready. Nebula's voice was steady, but a hint of nervousness crept in. Theoretical models are holding. We're as prepared as we can be. Captain Aurora Stormrider's hands hovered over the controls, her neon blue hair a stark contrast to the ship's sleek interior. Just say the word, Doc, and we'll make history. Zenith Money Supernovae stood back, his cybernetic eyes gleaming with anticipation. The moment of truth, Dr. Quark. Are we ready to rewrite the laws of physics? Zephyr took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. She thought of Lyra, watching from Earth, and of all the sacrifices that had led to this point. Initiate FTL sequence, Captain Stormrider. Let's show the universe what we can do. Aurora's fingers danced across the controls. FTL sequence initiated. Brace yourself, folks. This might get bumpy. The ship began to vibrate, a low hum building to a crescendo. Outside, the stars seemed to elongate, stretching into brilliant streaks of light. The Paradox's revolutionary drive engaged, tearing a hole in the very fabric of space-time. Energy levels spiking, Cosmos shouted over the growing noise. We're approaching the threshold. Nebula's voice was tense. Quantum fluctuations increasing. We're pushing the boundaries of my models. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as it approached the point of no return. Zephyr gripped the nearest console, her knuckles white. Hold steady, we can do this. Suddenly, there was a moment of absolute silence. Time seemed to stand still. Then, with a flash of blinding light and a sensation like the universe itself was being turned inside out, the Paradox leapt into FTL. The crew was pressed back into their seats by forces they couldn't comprehend. Through the viewscreen, reality itself seemed to warp and twist. Impossible colors and geometries flashed by, defying description. We've done it, Zephyr shouted, her voice filled with a mix of triumph and awe. We're traveling faster than light. For what felt like an eternity compressed into seconds, the Paradox hurtled through the cosmos at speeds never before achieved by humanity. Then, with another gut-wrenching lurch, they dropped back into normal space. Silence fell over the bridge as the crew tried to process what they'd just experienced. Slowly, they became aware of their surroundings. Through the viewscreen, an alien star system sprawled before them, its unfamiliar constellations a testament to how far they'd traveled. Status report, Zephyr called out, her voice shaky but determined. Cosmos was the first to respond, his cybernetic eyes wide with wonder. All systems functional, Doc. We made it. Nebula's voice was filled with disbelief. Incredible. We've traveled over 100 light-years in mere moments. Aurora let out a whoop of joy. Now that's what I call flying. Ready for another round, Doc? Zenith stepped forward, his usual composure broken by a childlike grin. Dr. Quark, you've done it. You've changed everything. Zephyr looked out at the alien stars, feeling a profound sense of achievement and responsibility. They had crossed a threshold from which there was no turning back. Humanity had taken its first real step into the cosmos. Well done, everyone, she said, her voice thick with emotion. But this is just the beginning. We have a universe to explore. As the crew of the Paradox began to analyze their surroundings and prepare for their next jump, none of them could have imagined the cosmic forces they had set in motion. Their breakthrough had not gone unnoticed, and in the vast, ancient expanse of the universe, both wonders and terrors stirred, awakened by humanity's audacious leap into the unknown. The adventure had truly begun, and the cosmos would never be the same. The HSS Paradox hung in space, a gleaming testament to human ingenuity against the backdrop of an alien star system. The bridge was silent, the crew still processing the monumental leap they had just made across the cosmos. Dr. Zephyr Quark was the first to break the silence, her mismatched eyes wide with wonder. Cosmos, start mapping our location. Nebula, I want a full analysis of the star system. Captain Stormrider, maintain our position. As the crew sprang into action, Zephyr turned to the newest member of their team, who had been quietly observing from her station. Dr. Exotica, it's your time to shine. What can you tell us about this system? Dr. Fauna Exotica, the ship's xenobiologist, was already poring over the incoming data. Her iridescent eyes, a modification designed for enhanced spectrum analysis, darted across multiple screens. It's incredible, she breathed. The third planet from the star shows signs of a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, and there are complex organic compounds in its upper atmosphere that suggest life. A ripple of excitement passed through the bridge. Zenith Money Supernavi leaned forward, his cybernetic eyes glowing intensely. Life? Are you certain? Fauna nodded, her expression a mix of professional caution and barely contained excitement. I'd need to get closer for a more detailed analysis, but the preliminary data is promising. We may have just discovered the first known extraterrestrial biosphere. Zephyr felt a surge of emotions: excitement, fear, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. They had come seeking scientific discoveries, but the implications of finding alien life were staggering. "All right, team," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We proceed with caution. Captain Stormrider, take us into a high orbit around the third planet. Cosmos, keep our stealth systems engaged. We don't want to announce our presence if there's any chance of intelligent life down there." As the Paradox glided towards the alien world, the view screens filled with images that took their breath away. The planet was a swirl of deep purples and vibrant greens, with vast oceans that shimmered with an odd, silvery sheen. Fauna Station beeped insistently as new data poured in. The atmosphere is breathable, but with a higher oxygen content than Earth. The plant life, if we can call it, that seems to be using a photosynthetic process we've never encountered before, and there are large heat signatures that could indicate large life forms. The excitement on the bridge was palpable. Nebula, usually so composed, couldn't keep the awe from her voice as she reported. The planet's magnetic field is incredibly strong. It might explain how life could evolve here despite the intense radiation from the star. Cosmos chimed in, his cybernetic implants whirring as they processed the flood of information. "I'm detecting artificial structures on the surface. They're unlike anything in our databases, but they're definitely not natural formations." Zephyr felt a chill run down her spine. They hadn't just discovered life, they'd found intelligent life. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. "Dr. Quark," Zenith said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "What are your orders? We've just made the greatest discovery in human history." Zephyr took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. She thought of Earth, of Lyra, of all the hopes and dreams that had propelled them across the stars. Their actions now would shape the future of not one, but two civilizations. "We observe," she said firmly. "We learn everything we can from orbit. No landing, no attempts at communication, not yet. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we take any risks." As the crew set about their tasks with renewed vigor, Zephyr couldn't shake a feeling of unease. They had come seeking answers about the nature of the universe, but now they faced questions far more profound. Who were these aliens? How would they react to humanity's presence? And what would this mean for the future of both their species? Little did they know, their arrival had not gone unnoticed. Deep beneath the alien world's silvery oceans, ancient sensors stirred to life, detecting the presence of the Paradox. A civilization far older and more advanced than humanity was about to turn its attention to the newcomers in their star system. The crew of the Paradox stood on the precipice of a first contact scenario they were woefully unprepared for. As they marveled at the alien world before them, none of them realized that they were being watched, and that their next actions would determine the fate of not just two civilizations, but potentially the entire galaxy. As the crew of the HSS Paradox continued their observations of the alien world, a soft chime emanated from the ship's central console. The holographic form of Area, the ship's advanced relativistic intelligence algorithm, materialized on the bridge. Her avatar, a shimmering blue humanoid figure composed of intricate, flowing data streams, turned to address Dr. Quark. Dr. Quark, Aria's melodious voice rang out, tinged with an unusual note of urgency. I've detected an anomaly at the edge of the system that requires immediate attention. Zephyr's mismatched eyes snapped to the eye's avatar. What kind of anomaly, Aria? The holographic display shifted, zooming out to show a comprehensive map of the star system. A blinking red dot appeared near the outermost planet. I've identified an artificial object in a wide orbit around the system, Aria explained, her form flickering slightly as she processed vast amounts of data. Its composition and energy signature do not match any known human technology. Given our current location, the logical conclusion is that this is an alien probe. A hush fell over the bridge. Captain Aurora Stormrider leaned forward in her seat, her neon blue hair seeming to bristle with excitement. An alien probe? Are you sure it's not just some space junk? Aria's avatar turned to face the captain. Negative, Captain Stormrider. The object is emitting a low-level energy signature that suggests active technology. Its trajectory and position indicate purposeful placement. Dr. Fauna Exotica rushed to her station, her iridescent eyes wide with anticipation. Aria, can you provide any details on its structure or potential function? The eye's form shimmered as she brought up detailed scans of the probe. The object is approximately 3 meters in length, with a complex array of sensors and what appear to be communication devices. Its outer shell is composed of materials not present in our periodic table. Most intriguingly, it seems to be actively scanning its surroundings. Zenith Monisupernavi stepped forward, his cybernetic eyes glowing intensely. Is there any indication that it's detected us, Aria? Negative, Mr. Monisupernavi. Our stealth systems appear to be effective against its scanning technology. However, I cannot guarantee this will remain the case if we approach closer. Dr. Zephyr Quark paced the bridge, her wild hair seeming to crackle with the electricity of her thoughts. This changes everything, she muttered. We're not just dealing with a planet of alien life. We're in the territory of a spacefaring civilization. Cosmos Gearshift's voice chimed in, tinged with both excitement and apprehension. Doc, if they've got probes out here, they might have more advanced ships too. We could be sitting ducks if they decide we're not welcome. Nebula Stardust nodded in agreement. We need to be cautious. This probe could be part of an early warning system. If we trigger it, we might alert the entire civilization to our presence. Zephyr took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision before her. They had come to explore, to push the boundaries of human knowledge. But now they faced a situation that could have consequences for all of humanity. Aria, she said finally, continue monitoring the probe. Alert us to any changes in its behavior or energy output. Cosmos, I want you to work with Aria to analyze its technology as best we can from this distance. Fauna, focus on determining if there's any biological component to the probe. Captain Stormrider, be ready to engage FTL at a moment's notice if we need to make a quick exit. As the crew set about their tasks with renewed urgency, Zephyr turned to Zenith. We may need to cut this expedition short, she said quietly. The implications of this discovery are too big to risk mishandling first contact. Zenith nodded solemnly, his usual bravado tempered by the gravity of the situation. I understand, Doctor, but let's not be too hasty. This is the opportunity of a lifetime of many lifetimes. We need to gather as much data as we can before we leave. As they discussed their next move, none of them noticed a subtle shift in the alien probe's energy signature. Deep within its alien circuitry, a dormant program stirred to life, awakened by the faint traces of the Paradox's presence that had slipped past their stealth systems. Unbeknownst to the crew of the Paradox, a signal was already racing towards the alien world, carrying news of their arrival. The true test of humanity's first foray into the cosmos was about to begin, and the actions of Dr. Zephyr Quark and her team in the coming hours would shape the future of interstellar relations for generations to come. As the HSS Paradox maintained its position at a safe distance from both the alien world and the mysterious probe, The crew threw themselves into the monumental task of deciphering the alien technology. The ship's laboratory buzzed with activity, holographic displays flickering with streams of incomprehensible data. Dr. Zephyr Quark paced the lab, her wild hair even more disheveled than usual. "All right, team, what have we got?" Cosmos Gearshift, his cybernetic implants whirring furiously, shook his head in frustration. "The tech is like nothing I've ever seen, Doc. It's not just advanced, it's operating on principles we haven't even theorized yet." Dr. Fauna Exotica chimed in, her iridescent eyes fixed on a microscopic analysis of the probe's structure. "There's definitely a biological component to the probe's outer layer. It's almost as if the technology is grown rather than manufactured." Nebula Stardust frowned at her equations. "The energy signature defies our current understanding of physics. It's as if it's drawing power from, I don't know, the fabric of space-time itself." Zephyr felt a headache building. They were the brightest minds humanity had to offer, and they were stumped by this alien technology. She turned to the newest addition to their team, who had been quietly observing from a corner of the lab. "Professor Babelbrain, any insights from a linguistic perspective?" Professor Lexicon Babelbrain, a tall, thin man with a shock of white hair and eyes that seemed to change color as he thought, stepped forward. His voice was soft but filled with excitement. "Dr. Quark, I believe I may have found a pattern in the probe's transmissions. It's not a language as we understand it, but there's a definite structure to the data bursts." This caught everyone's attention. Zephyr leaned in, her mismatched eyes intense. "Go on, Professor." Babelbrain activated a holographic display, showing a complex series of symbols and waveforms. "The probe isn't just scanning, it's communicating. The patterns in its transmissions are too regular to be random. I believe it's sending out a message on repeat." "Can you decode it?" Zenith asked, his cybernetic eyes glowing with anticipation. Babelbrain shook his head. "Not entirely, not yet, but I've identified what I believe to be numerical sequences within the message. They repeat at regular intervals, almost like a cosmic Rosetta Stone," Zephyr finished, her mind racing with the implications. "Exactly," Babelbrain exclaimed. "If we can correlate these sequences with known universal constants, the speed of light, Planck's constant, pi, we might be able to establish a basic framework for communication." The lab erupted into excited chatter, but Aria's calm voice cut through the noise. "Alert! The probe's energy signature has changed. It appears to be powering up additional systems." A tense silence fell over the room. Zephyr turned to the eye's holographic avatar. "Aria, what's happening?" "The probe is now emitting a much stronger signal, Dr. Quark. Based on its direction, it appears to be transmitting towards the third planet." The implications hit everyone at once. Their presence had been detected. "Professor Babelbrain," Zephyr said urgently, "we need that translation now. If that probe is reporting our presence, we need to know what it's saying." Babelbrain nodded, his eyes now a swirling mix of colors as his mind worked at fever pitch. He immersed himself in the data, muttering incomprehensibly as he worked. Minutes ticked by, feeling like hours. The crew watched anxiously as Babelbrain worked, the tension in the lab palpable. Finally, he looked up, his face a mix of awe and trepidation. "I've got it," he said softly. "At least, I think I do. The message. It's an announcement. And a warning." "What does it say, Professor?" Zephyr asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Babelbrain took a deep breath. "As near as I can translate, attention. New species detected. Non-Concordat vessel in restricted space. Awaiting instructions." The implications of those words hung heavy in the air. They weren't just visitors, they were intruders in someone else's territory. And whoever or whatever controlled this star system now knew they were here. Zephyr turned to her crew, her face set with determination. "All right, people. We've just stepped onto a galactic stage we didn't know existed. Whatever happens next will shape the future of humanity. Let's make sure we're ready." as the crew scrambled to prepare for potential first contact. None of them could shake the feeling that they were now players in a game whose rules they didn't understand. The true test of humanity's first interstellar expedition was about to begin. The tension on the bridge of the HSS Paradox was palpable as the crew awaited a response from the alien civilization. Professor Lexicon Babelbrain hunched over his station, his eyes a kaleidoscope of colors as he fine-tuned his translation algorithms. Dr. Zephyr Quark paced nervously, her wild hair seeming to crackle with static electricity. Suddenly, Aria's holographic form flickered to life. "Incoming transmission detected," the AI announced. "Origin, third planet of the system. The signal matches the encoding of the probe's message." "This is it," Zephyr breathed. "Professor Babelbrain, are you ready?" The linguist nodded, his fingers poised over his console. "As ready as I'll ever be, Doctor. Let's make history." The alien message began streaming across their screens, a complex series of symbols and waveforms. Babelbrain's translation software worked furiously, converting the alien language into something the crew could understand. "I've got it," Babelbrain announced, his voice trembling with excitement. The message reads, "Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted Concordat space. Identify yourselves and state your intentions. How did you bypass our detection grid?" A ripple of excitement passed through the crew. Captain Aurora Stormrider grinned, her neon blue hair seeming to glow brighter. "Well, at least they're talking to us instead of shooting." Zephyr took a deep breath, steadying herself. "All right, let's respond. Professor, can you encode our message in their format?" Babelbrain nodded. "I believe so, Doctor. What shall we say?" Zephyr thought for a moment, weighing each word carefully. "Sendis, greetings from the planet Earth. We are a peaceful expedition of exploration and scientific discovery. We apologize for our unannounced entry into your space. Our faster-than-light technology is new to us, and we were unaware of any restricted areas. We come in peace and with respect." As Babelbrain worked to encode and transmit the message, the crew held their breath. Minutes ticked by, feeling like hours, before Aria announced another incoming transmission. Babelbrain's translation appeared on the main screen. "Earth vessel, your claim of faster-than-light technology is unexpected. The Concordat has no record of your species or your world. Explain how you achieved FTL travel without our detection or assistance." The implications of this message weren't lost on anyone. Cosmos Gearshift let out a low whistle. "Sounds like we've surprised them, Doc. That's gotta be a good thing, right?" Dr. Fauna Exotica shook her head, her iridescent eyes wide. "Or very dangerous. We might have just announced ourselves as a potential threat." Zephyr nodded grimly. "We need to tread carefully. Professor, let's respond. Our FTL technology is a recent development, based on a combination of what you might consider outdated physics and quantum mechanics. We achieved this breakthrough independently and only recently ventured beyond our solar system. We are eager to learn and share knowledge, if you are willing." As they sent the message, Zenith Monisupernavi stepped forward, his cybernetic eyes glowing intensely. "Dr. Quark, we should consider offering a demonstration of our FTL capabilities. It might help establish our credibility." Before Zephyr could respond, Aria announced another incoming transmission. Babelbrain's translation appeared. "Earth vessel, your claims are intriguing. The Concordat oversees all FTL travel in this sector of the galaxy. Your presence and technology represent an anomaly that must be investigated. Prepare to be boarded for inspection. Any resistance will be met with force. Stand by for further instructions." The bridge fell silent as the crew processed this development. They had come seeking discovery and adventure, but now found themselves facing a potential confrontation with an advanced alien civilization. Zephyr's mind raced, weighing their options. They could flee, using their FTL drive to escape, but that might be seen as an act of hostility. They could submit to boarding, but that risked their technology falling into alien hands. Or they could try to negotiate, to find a middle ground that might lead to peaceful first contact. "All right, team," she said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We've got some big decisions to make, and not much time to make them. Let's think this through carefully. The future of Earth-alien relations is in our hands." As the crew of the Paradox debated their next move, none of them realized that their arrival had set in motion events that would reshape the political landscape of the galaxy. The Concordat, a coalition of advanced civilizations that had long controlled FTL travel, was about to face its greatest challenge in millennia, a young, unpredictable species that had achieved the impossible without their knowledge or consent. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of the Paradox and its crew, but potentially the course of human history and the future of the galaxy itself. As the crew of the HSS Paradox grappled with their response to the Concordat's demand for inspection, Aria's holographic form flickered urgently. "Incoming transmission, Doctor. It appears to be a direct communication request." Dr. Zephyr Quark straightened her lab coat, trying to project an air of calm she didn't feel. "Accept the transmission, Aria. Let's see who we're dealing with." The main view screen came to life, revealing a being that defied easy description. The alien had a vaguely humanoid shape, but its skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, and multiple eye stalks swiveled independently. When it spoke, its words were translated by Professor Babelbrain's software. "Greetings, Earth vessel. I am Ambassador Xylith Zeta 9 of the Galactic Concordat. Your presence here has caused quite a stir among our scientists." Zephyr stepped forward, her mismatched eyes meeting the alien's gaze steadily. "Ambassador, I am Dr. Zephyr Quark, lead scientist of this expedition. We apologize for any disturbance we've caused. We're on a mission of peaceful exploration." The alien's eye stalks quivered in what might have been amusement or confusion. "Dr. Quark, your claim of independent FTL travel is perplexing. Our civilization has overseen faster-than-light technology for millennia. The method you describe should be impossible according to our advanced understanding of physics." This statement sent a ripple of surprise through the Paradox's bridge. Cosmos Gearshift couldn't contain himself. "Impossible? But we're here, aren't we? We've done it." Ambassador Xylith's attention shifted to Cosmos. "Indeed, your presence is undeniable. Yet the principles you claim to use for FTL travel have been thoroughly disproven by our scientists ages ago. It's as if you've achieved flight by flapping your arms, a charming idea, but contrary to the laws of nature as we understand them." Zephyr felt a mix of pride and unease. Their breakthrough had apparently challenged the fundamental beliefs of an advanced alien civilization. "Ambassador, I assure you, our method is sound. We've combined principles of classical physics with quantum mechanics in a novel way. Perhaps we could share our research. A scientific exchange could benefit both our species." The ambassador's bioluminescent patterns shifted, possibly indicating deep thought. "Your offer is intriguing, Dr. Quark. However, it raises serious concerns. If your claims are true, it could upend millennia of established science. If they are false, your presence here becomes even more mysterious." Nebula Stardust stepped forward, her calm voice a counterpoint to the tension. "Ambassador, science often advances through challenging established beliefs. Couldn't our discovery represent an opportunity for new understanding?" Xylith's eye stalks swiveled towards Nebula. "A logical argument. Yet the implications are far-reaching. The Concordat's control of FTL travel has been a cornerstone of galactic peace for eons. Your method, if viable, could disrupt that balance." Zenith Mani Supernovae, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Ambassador, perhaps a demonstration is in order. We could show you our FTL drive in action." The alien's reaction was immediate and alarming. "Absolutely not. An uncontrolled FTL jump in this system could have catastrophic consequences. No, we must insist on a thorough inspection of your vessel." Zephyr felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Their breakthrough, the culmination of years of work and sacrifice, was being treated as either an impossibility or a potential threat. She knew that their next actions would be crucial not just for the mission, but for humanity's future in the cosmos. "Ambassador Xylith," she said, choosing her words carefully, "we understand your concerns. We came here in the spirit of discovery and cooperation. Perhaps we could agree to a limited inspection. We're willing to share our knowledge, but we must also protect our interests and the future of our species." The ambassador was silent for a moment, its bioluminescent patterns swirling in complex patterns. Finally, it spoke. "Your proposal is acceptable. For now, we will send a scientific delegation to your vessel. They will be unarmed, but will be accompanied by a security detail that will remain outside. Is this agreeable?" Zephyr looked around at her crew, seeing a mix of excitement, apprehension, and determination on their faces. They had come seeking new frontiers of science, and now found themselves at the frontier of interspecies diplomacy. "We agree, Ambassador," Zephyr said, her voice firm. "We look forward to this historic meeting." As the transmission ended, the crew of the Paradox burst into a flurry of activity, preparing for their first face-to-face encounter with an alien species. But beneath the excitement, a current of tension ran deep. They all understood that the next few hours could determine the course of human history and their place in the galactic community. Little did they know, their arrival and their impossible FTL drive had already sent shockwaves through the highest levels of the Concordat. In distant corners of the galaxy, ancient powers were stirring, their attention drawn to the tiny ship that had achieved the unachievable. The cosmic stage was set for a drama that would reshape the very foundations of galactic society. The hours following the transmission from Ambassador Xylith Zeta-9 were a whirlwind of activity aboard the HSS Paradox. Dr. Zephyr Quark called an emergency meeting in the ship's conference room, her wild hair even more disheveled than usual as she paced back and forth. "All right, team," she began, her mismatched eyes scanning the faces of her crew. "We're about to make history. The first face-to-face meeting between humans and an advanced alien civilization. We need to be prepared for anything." Captain Aurora Stormrider leaned back in her chair, her neon blue hair a stark contrast to the serious atmosphere. "Doc, how do we know they won't just try to seize our ship the moment they're on board?" Zenith Supernavi nodded in agreement. "We should be prepared to engage our FTL drive at a moment's notice, just in case." Zephyr shook her head. "We can't appear hostile or overly suspicious. This is a diplomatic mission now as much as a scientific one. Professor Babelbrain, what insights can you offer about their culture based on our communications so far?" The linguist's eyes swirled with colors as he considered. "They seem to value order and established knowledge highly. Our FTL method challenges their worldview, which makes them both curious and wary. We should emphasize our willingness to learn and share, but also stand firm on protecting our own interests." Dr. Fauna Exotica chimed in, her iridescent eyes gleaming with excitement. "From a biological standpoint, we need to be prepared for any potential contamination issues. Their physiology is likely vastly different from ours." Nebula Stardust nodded in agreement. "We should set up a quarantine area for the meeting. It protects both sides and gives us a controlled environment." As the crew discussed logistics, Aria's holographic form materialized. "Dr. Quark, I've analyzed the Concordat's transmissions. There are underlying frequencies that suggest they're communicating on levels beyond our current understanding. We should be prepared for the possibility that they have abilities or technologies we can't detect." Zephyr absorbed all this information, her brilliant mind working overtime. "All right, here's the plan. We'll set up a meeting area in the cargo bay. Cosmos, work with Fauna to establish a quarantine field. Aurora, I want security protocols in place, but nothing obvious we don't want to appear threatening. Nebula, prepare a simplified presentation of our FTL theory. Babelbrain, you'll be our primary communicator alongside me." As the crew set about their tasks, Zephyr turned to Zenith. "We need to present a united front. Whatever happens in that meeting, we're representing all of humanity now." Zenith nodded solemnly, his cybernetic eyes glowing with determination. "Understood, Doctor." I'll put aside my business interests for the greater good of our species." Meanwhile, aboard the Concordat vessel approaching the Paradox, Ambassador Xylith Zeta 9 was engaged in its own preparations. The ship's central chamber was filled with a diverse array of alien beings, each representing a different aspect of Concordat expertise. "Remember," Xylith addressed the assembled group, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing with emphasis, "these humans are an unknown variable. Their FTL technology, if genuine, could upset the balance we've maintained for millennia. We must learn all we can while safeguarding our own interests." A crystalline being chimed in, its voice a melodious resonance. "But surely, Ambassador, if their method truly works, it could revolutionize our understanding of the universe." "Or plunge the galaxy into chaos," countered a shadowy figure, its form barely visible. "Uncontrolled FTL technology in the hands of a young species could be disastrous." Xylith's eye stalk swiveled, taking in the various perspectives. "We will approach this meeting with open minds, but also with caution. Our primary goal is to ascertain the truth of their claims and assess the potential impact on the Concordat. Be prepared for anything." As both ships made their final preparations, the air was thick with anticipation. On the Paradox, the crew felt the weight of representing their entire species in this historic encounter. Aboard the Concordat vessel, the delegation grappled with the possibility that their understanding of the universe might be about to change forever. The stage was set for a meeting that would shape the future of not just humanity, but potentially the entire galaxy. As the Concordat ship docked with the Paradox, both sides steeled themselves for a diplomatic dance, unlike any in human history, a delicate balance of curiosity, caution, and the unknown. The cargo bay of the HSS Paradox had been transformed into a makeshift diplomatic chamber. A shimmering quarantine field divided the space, with a human crew on one side and an empty area on the other, awaiting their alien visitors. Dr. Zephyr Quark stood at the forefront, her wild hair somewhat tamed for the occasion, her mismatched eyes alert and curious. As the airlock cycled, Dr. Fauna Exotica activated her specialized sensory implants, ready to observe and analyze their alien visitors from a biological perspective. The rest of the crew held their breath as the inner door slid open. Ambassador Xylith Zeta 9 was the first to enter, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing in what might have been excitement or nervousness. Behind it came a diverse array of beings, each more alien than the last. Dr. Fauna's eyes widened as she took in the variety of life forms. "Fascinating," she whispered, her implants recording every detail. "They're not just a single species, but a coalition of different life forms." Indeed, following Xylith was a being that seemed to be made of living crystal, its form refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. Another appeared to be a sentient cloud of gas contained within a high-tech suit. A third moved on multiple tentacle-like appendages, its skin shifting colors rapidly. As the alien delegation approached the quarantine field, Zephyr stepped forward. "Ambassador Xylith, esteemed delegates of the Concordat, welcome aboard the HSS Paradox. I am Dr. Zephyr Quark, and on behalf of humanity, we greet you in peace and with hopes for mutual understanding." Xylith's eye stalks quivered as it responded, its words translated by Professor Babelbrain's software. "Dr. Quark, we thank you for your hospitality. We come with curiosity and caution, seeking to understand your presence here and the technology that brought you." As the formal greetings were exchanged, Dr. Fauna was furiously taking notes, her implants working overtime. She noticed how the crystalline being seemed to communicate through subtle changes in its refraction patterns, while the gaseous entity emitted barely perceptible pheromones. The tentacled creature's color changes appeared to be a form of emotional expression. "Dr. Quark," Fauna whispered urgently, "their biology is incredibly diverse. Each species seems to have evolved in completely different environments. The implications for their cognitive processes and perceptions must be enormous." Zephyr nodded slightly, acknowledging Fauna's observation, while maintaining her focus on the diplomatic exchange. "Ambassador, we're prepared to discuss our FTL technology and how we came to be here. But first, might we learn more about the Concordat and its member species? Your diversity is truly awe-inspiring. Xylith's bioluminescent patterns shifted in what might have been pride. The Concordat is an ancient alliance of spacefaring civilizations. We have guided the development of countless young species, maintaining peace and order across this sector of the galaxy for eons. Your arrival challenges many of our fundamental assumptions. As the conversation progressed, Dr. Fauna continued her observations. She noticed how the aliens seemed to communicate on multiple levels simultaneously through verbal language, body language, pheromones, and even subtle electromagnetic emissions that her implants could barely detect. Suddenly, the crystalline being stepped forward, its voice a melodious chime. "Forgive my interruption, but I must ask, how do you manage faster-than-light communication? We detect no quantum entanglement devices or subspace transmitters on your vessel." This question caught the human crew off guard. Captain Aurora Stormrider exchanged a puzzled glance with Cosmos Gearshift. We don't have FTL communication," Aurora admitted. "We use good old-fashioned radio waves." A ripple of what could only be described as shock passed through the alien delegation. The gaseous entity emitted a cloud of particles that set Dr. Fauna's sensors buzzing. "Impossible," it exclaimed. "How can you navigate interstellar space without real-time communication?" Zephyr, sensing the growing tension, quickly intervened. "Perhaps this is an excellent opportunity for us to exchange knowledge. We'd be fascinated to learn about your communication technologies, just as I'm sure you're curious about our FTL drive." As she spoke, Dr. Fauna noticed something odd. The tentacled alien at the back of the delegation was behaving strangely, its colors shifting rapidly in a pattern that seemed out of sync with the rest of the conversation. She zoomed in with her sensory implants, focusing on its subtle movements. "Dr. Quark," Fauna said quietly, her voice tense, "I think one of the aliens is trying to scan through our quarantine field. Its appendages are emitting some kind of energy I've never seen before." Before Zephyr could respond, Aria's voice came urgently through their comm systems. "Alert! Unknown energy signature detected attempting to penetrate ship's systems." The diplomatic meeting suddenly took on a new, tense atmosphere. The humans and aliens eyed each other warily, the initial excitement of first contact now tinged with suspicion and the potential for conflict. Zephyr's mind raced. They were on the brink of a diplomatic incident that could have consequences for all of humanity. How they handled the next few moments could determine the future of Earth's relationship with the galactic community. "Ambassador Xylith," she said carefully, her voice steady despite the tension, "we appear to have a situation. Perhaps we should address this misunderstanding before we proceed further." As both sides prepared to navigate this unexpected challenge, none of them realized that far away, at the edge of the solar system, another ship had just dropped out of FTL. Its design was unlike anything human or Concordat, a harbinger of yet another player entering the cosmic stage, drawn by the ripples of humanity's impossible leap across the stars. The first contact scenario had just become exponentially more complex, and the crew of the Paradox found themselves at the center of a rapidly expanding galactic drama. As the tension in the cargo bay reached a critical point, Ambassador Xylith Zeta-9's bioluminescent patterns pulsed rapidly, its eye stalks swiveling between its delegation and the human crew. After a moment of what seemed like internal deliberation, it raised an appendage in a gesture that somehow conveyed both authority and conciliation. "Dr. Quark," Xylith began, its translated voice carrying a tone of gravity, "it seems we have reached a point where greater context is needed. I must apologize for my colleagues' overzealous curiosity. Rest assured, no harm was intended." The tentacled alien's colors shifted to a muted hue, possibly indicating embarrassment or contrition. Xylith continued, "Your arrival has created a situation unprecedented in our long history. To understand why, I must explain the nature of our galactic community." As the ambassador spoke, holographic images began to form in the space between the two groups, presumably projected by some unseen technology. A vast map of the Milky Way galaxy materialized, with various sectors highlighted in different colors. For over 1 million of your Earth years, the Concordat has overseen the development and integration of spacefaring species in this sector of the galaxy, Xylith explained. We have nurtured countless civilizations, guiding them from their first tentative steps into space to full membership in our galactic society. The hologram zoomed in on a particular region, showing a network of interconnected star systems. FTL travel and communication form the backbone of our civilization, the ambassador continued. But they are technologies we carefully control and distribute. The physics behind them are complex and potentially dangerous if mishandled. We have always believed that species must reach a certain level of technological and social development before being granted access to these capabilities. Dr. Zephyr Quark's mind raced as she processed this information. Are you saying that you regulate the technological progress of other species? Xylith's eye stalks quivered in what might have been affirmation. In a sense, yes. It is for the greater good, to prevent young, unprepared species from unleashing forces they cannot control. We have seen the catastrophic results of premature FTL technology in the distant past. The hologram shifted again, showing Earth's solar system, a tiny, isolated point far from the Concordat's network. Your world, Earth, was known to us, but classified as a pre-contact civilization, still centuries away from being considered for introduction to the galactic community, Xylith explained. Our monitoring systems showed no signs of imminent FTL development. And yet, here you are. The implications of this statement weren't lost on anyone in the room. Humanity had unknowingly bypassed an entire system of galactic oversight and control. Zenith Manisupernavi stepped forward, his cybernetic eyes glowing intensely. Are you saying we've broken some kind of galactic law by developing FTL travel independently? Xylith's bioluminescent patterns swirled in a complex dance. Not broken, precisely, but you have disrupted a very delicate balance. Your method of FTL travel, if indeed it functions as you claim, operates on principles we had long ago dismissed as unviable. It represents a paradigm shift that could have far-reaching consequences for the entire galaxy. Dr. Fauna Exotica, still monitoring the biological responses of the alien delegation, noticed a subtle shift in their postures and pheromone outputs. They're nervous, she whispered to Zephyr. I think we've inadvertently challenged their entire worldview. Zephyr nodded slightly, then addressed Xylith. Ambassador, we came here in the spirit of exploration and scientific discovery. We had no idea about the existence of your Concordat or its rules. Surely our breakthrough could be seen as an opportunity for mutual learning and advancement. Before Xylith could respond, Aria's voice came urgently through the ship's comm system. Dr. Quark, I've detected an unknown vessel entering the system. Its design matches neither Earth nor Concordat specifications. The cargo bay erupted into a flurry of activity. The alien delegation huddled together, communicating in rapid, untranslatable bursts. Captain Aurora Stormrider was already calling for battle stations, while Cosmos Gearshift rushed to a console to analyze the new arrival. Ambassador Xylith's eye stalks were fully extended, its bioluminescence pulsing rapidly. This is unexpected. We must return to our ship immediately. As the aliens prepared to depart, Zephyr felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. They had come seeking new frontiers of science and had instead stumbled onto a galactic political stage they barely understood. Now, with an unknown player entering the scene, the situation had become even more complex. Ambassador, she called out as Xylith headed for the airlock. What does this mean? Who are they? Xylith turned, its alien features somehow conveying a mix of concern and resignation. It means, Dr. Quark, that your arrival has not gone unnoticed by powers beyond the Concordat. I fear the game has changed, and none of us are prepared for what comes next. As the alien delegation hurriedly departed, the crew of the Paradox was left to grapple with the realization that their breakthrough had not only challenged the scientific foundations of an advanced civilization, but had also potentially upset a delicate galactic balance. The true consequences of their journey were only just beginning to unfold. As the Concordat delegation hastily departed, the bridge of the HSS Paradox erupted into a flurry of activity. Dr. Zephyr Quark stood at the center, her wild hair seeming to crackle with the electricity of her thoughts. Area, full scan of the incoming vessel. Cosmos, analyze their approach vector. Aurora, keep us at yellow alert, Zephyr commanded, her mismatched eyes darting between holographic displays. Suddenly, a new transmission cut through the chaos. The main viewscreen flickered to life, revealing a stern-faced alien with metallic scales and piercing, bioluminescent eyes. Its uniform was adorned with intricate symbols that seemed to shift and change. "This is Commander Vortex Starkiller of the Galactic Defense Force," the alien announced, its voice a low, resonant growl, even through the translation software. "Human vessel, you will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Your unauthorized FTL technology poses a severe threat to galactic security." Zephyr stepped forward, her face set with determination. "Commander Starkiller, I am Dr. Zephyr Quark of Earth. We're on a peaceful mission of exploration. There's been a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Starkiller interrupted, his scales flashing with what might have been anger. "Your very presence here is a catastrophic breach of galactic protocol. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Before Zephyr could respond, Ambassador Xylith's face appeared on a split screen. "Commander, please. The humans were unaware of our protocols. This situation requires diplomacy, not force." Starkiller's eyes narrowed. "With all due respect, Ambassador, this goes beyond diplomacy. Their FTL method completely bypasses our established transit corridors and defense networks. It's a military nightmare." This statement sent a ripple of shock through the Paradox's crew. Cosmos Gearshift's cybernetic implants whirred as he processed the implications. "Doc," he said, his voice a mix of awe and concern, "our drive doesn't just bend space-time. It's punching right through it, ignoring all the usual routes." Zephyr's mind raced. Their breakthrough was even more significant than they'd realized. They hadn't just achieved FTL travel. They'd inadvertently created a method that could render existing galactic defense systems obsolete. Commander Starkiller continued, his voice tight with barely contained fury. "Every transit point in the galaxy is monitored and regulated. It's how we maintain peace and prevent surprise attacks. But your ship? It could appear anywhere, at any time, without warning. Do you understand the panic this could cause?" "Commander," Zephyr said, trying to keep her voice calm and reasonable, "we had no intention of causing any disruption. Our technology was developed for peaceful exploration. Surely we can find a way to share our knowledge that doesn't threaten galactic stability." Xylith's bioluminescent patterns pulsed rapidly. "The Doctor has a point, Commander. This could be an opportunity for advancement, not just a threat." Starkiller's scales rippled in what might have been frustration. "And what happens when this technology spreads? When every pirate and rogue state can pop up anywhere in the galaxy without warning? The potential for chaos is unimaginable." As the argument between Starkiller and Xylith intensified, Zephyr felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. Their scientific breakthrough, the culmination of years of work and dreams, was being viewed as a potential weapon of mass destruction. Suddenly, Aria's calm voice cut through the tension. "Dr. Quark, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from both the Concordat and Defense Force vessels. They appear to be powering up weapon systems." The realization hit Zephyr like a physical blow. This wasn't just a diplomatic incident anymore. They were on the brink of potential interstellar conflict, with Earth and humanity caught in the crossfire. "Listen to me, both of you," Zephyr said, her voice carrying an authority that made even Starkiller pause. "We came here in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding. If our arrival has caused this much disruption, then we have a responsibility to help find a solution. But that can't happen if we're firing at each other. Commander Starkiller, Ambassador Xylith, I propose an immediate summit. Let's talk this through rationally." There was a tense moment of silence as both alien leaders considered her words. Finally, Starkiller spoke, his voice grudging but less hostile. "Very well, Dr. Quark. A summit. But be warned, the fate of your species and your world may well hang in the balance of these negotiations." As the transmission ended, Zephyr turned to her crew. She saw a mix of fear, excitement, and determination on their faces. They had come seeking the stars and found themselves thrust onto a galactic stage, with the future of humanity in their hands. "All right, team," she said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We've got a lot of work to do. Let's show these aliens what humanity is really capable of." As the Paradox prepared for the most important diplomatic meeting in human history, none of them realized that news of their revolutionary FTL drive was already spreading through subspace channels. In distant corners of the galaxy, ancient powers and hidden factions were stirring, their attention drawn to the tiny ship that had achieved the impossible. The cosmic chess game was about to become far more complex, with Earth as an unexpected and pivotal piece on the board. As preparations for the summit were underway, the situation in the alien star system grew increasingly tense. The HSS Paradox found itself at the center of a growing fleet of alien vessels, each representing different factions and interests within the galactic community. Dr. Zephyr Quark stood on the bridge, her wild hair seeming to bristle with the electricity of the moment. She watched the holographic display with a mix of awe and apprehension as Aria provided a real-time update of the gathering forces. "Doc," Captain Aurora Stormrider called out, her neon blue hair a stark contrast to her serious expression. "We've got another ship incoming, and this one's big." As if on cue, a massive vessel dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. Its design was unlike anything they'd seen before, all sharp angles and ominous protrusions that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "Incoming transmission," Aria announced, her holographic form flickering with unusual static. "Warning, the signal contains unknown data packets. Firewall engaged." The main viewscreen came to life, revealing a figure that sent a chill through the entire crew. The alien was humanoid in shape, but that's where the similarity ended. Its body seemed to be a fusion of organic matter and advanced technology, with pulsing energy conduits visible beneath translucent skin. But it was the eyes that truly unnerved them, cold, calculating, and utterly devoid of empathy. "I am General Thanatos Worldender," the figure announced, its voice a discordant mix of organic and synthetic tones. "I speak for the militaristic expansionist faction of the Outer Rim territories. Your presence here, humans, has upset a delicate balance." Zephyr stepped forward, trying to keep her voice steady. "General Worldender, we came in peace. We had no intention of—" "Intentions are irrelevant," Thanatos interrupted. "Your very existence, with this uncontrolled FTL capability, represents an existential threat to established galactic order." Ambassador Xylith's face appeared on a split screen, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing rapidly. "General, this is premature. We have agreed to a summit to discuss." "Discuss?" Thanatos scoffed, the cybernetic implants around its eyes pulsing with an ominous red light. "While we talk, they could be transmitting their technology back to their homeworld. Imagine fleets of primitive, unpredictable aliens appearing at will throughout the galaxy. The potential for chaos is unacceptable." Commander Vortex Starkiller joined the conversation, his metallic scales reflecting the tension. "I share your concerns, General, but we cannot act hastily. The humans claim to be peaceful." "Peace is a luxury we cannot afford," Thanatos cut in. "The only way to ensure galactic security is to neutralize this threat at its source." The implications of that statement hit the Paradox's crew like a physical blow. Zenith Moneysupernovi stepped forward, his cybernetic eyes glowing intensely. "Are you suggesting an attack on Earth? On our entire species?" Thanatos' gaze fixed on Zenith, cold and calculating. "Preemptive action may be necessary to preserve the greater good. Your world, isolated as it is, would never stand a chance against a unified galactic force." The bridge of the Paradox erupted into chaos. Aurora was calling for battle stations, while Cosmos frantically worked to boost their shields. Dr. Fauna Exotica's sensors were going haywire trying to analyze the biology of this new threat. Zephyr felt a moment of panic threatening to overwhelm her. They had come seeking knowledge and adventure, and now found themselves facing the potential annihilation of their entire species. But as she looked at her crew humans who had achieved the impossible, she felt a surge of determination. "General Thanatos," she said, her voice carrying an authority that made even the cyborg alien pause. "You speak of chaos and threat, but have you considered the opportunity our arrival represents? Our FTL method challenges your understanding of physics. Imagine what other advancements we might achieve together, peacefully." Thanatos' cybernetic eyes narrowed. "Pretty words, human. But words will not protect your world if your technology falls into the wrong hands." "Then help us ensure it doesn't," Zephyr countered. "Work with us, not against us. Humanity has much to learn, but we also have much to offer. We've achieved what you thought impossible. Who knows what other breakthroughs we might make together." There was a tense moment of silence as Thanatos seemed to consider her words. Finally, it spoke. "You will have your summit, humans. But be warned, if we deem your species a threat, no force in this galaxy will be able to protect you." As the transmission ended, the crew of the Paradox let out a collective breath they hadn't realized they were holding. They had bought themselves time, but the stakes had just been raised to unimaginable heights. Zephyr turned to her team, seeing a mix of fear and determination on their faces. "All right, everyone. We've got a lot of work to do before this summit. The fate of Earth and all of humanity is in our hands. Let's show these aliens what we're really made of." As they set about preparing for the most important diplomatic meeting in human history, none of them realized that General Thanatos' transmission had contained hidden data packets that had slipped past even Area's advanced firewalls. Deep in the Paradox's systems, an alien AI began to stir, its purpose yet unknown. The cosmic chess game was becoming more complex by the moment, and the crew of the Paradox were unwitting players in a galactic drama that threatened to reshape the very fabric of interstellar society. As tensions mounted and preparations for the summit continued, Captain Aurora Stormrider found herself restless. The weight of Earth's fate pressed heavily on her shoulders, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the summit blind. Late in the ship's night cycle, Aurora made her way to the security office where Chief Granite Steelheart was reviewing protocols. Granite, a mountain of a man with cybernetic enhancements and a perpetual scowl, looked up as she entered. "Captain," he growled, his voice like gravel. "Couldn't sleep either?" Aurora's neon blue hair seemed to glow in the dim light of the office. "Granite, we need to talk. This summit, we're at a massive disadvantage. We know next to nothing about their military capabilities, while they're probably scanning our ship as we speak." Granite's cybernetic, I whirred as it focused on Aurora. "What are you suggesting, Captain?" A mischievous grin spread across Aurora's face. "How'd you like to go on a little unauthorized recon mission?" 30 minutes later, Aurora and Granite were suited up in the Paradox's most advanced stealth gear. Dr. Zephyr Quark had been informed of their plan. Plausible deniability was crucial and had reluctantly agreed to turn a blind eye. "Area," Aurora whispered as they prepared to leave. "Can you create a sensor blind spot for us?" The eye's voice came through their earpieces. "Affirmative, Captain. But be warned, my ability to mask your presence will be limited once you're off the ship." As the airlock cycled, Aurora felt a familiar thrill of adrenaline. This was what she lived for: the danger, the unknown. Beside her, Granite was a solid, reassuring presence. They made their way towards the nearest alien vessel, a sleek, predatory-looking ship that Aurora guessed belonged to Commander Vortex Starkiller's faction. Using their suit's propulsion systems, they maneuvered carefully through the debris field surrounding the gathered fleet. "There," Granite's gruff voice came through the comm. "Looks like some kind of external sensor array." They approached cautiously, their suits' adaptive camouflage helping them blend into the starry background. Aurora produced a small device, a quantum data sniffer of Cosmos's design, and carefully attached it to the alien ship's hull. Come on, she muttered as the device worked to penetrate the ship's security protocols. Suddenly, an alarm blared through their suits. Proximity alert, Aria's voice warned. Unknown energy signature approaching rapidly. Aurora looked up to see a small, spherical drone heading straight for them. Evasive maneuvers, she yelled, pushing off from the hull. Granite was already in motion, his cybernetic reflexes allowing him to dodge the drone's initial scan. Captain, we need to neutralize that thing before it alerts the whole fleet. Aurora's mind raced. They couldn't risk damaging the drone that would definitely be seen as an act of aggression. Then an idea struck her. Granite, your EMP grenade, low yield, just enough to scramble its circuits. The security chief didn't hesitate. He pulled a small device from his belt and tossed it with pinpoint accuracy. The EMP pulse washed over the drone, causing it to spin erratically before shutting down. Quick thinking, Captain, Granite rumbled approvingly. They retrieved the disabled drone in the data sniffer, then made their way back to the Paradox as quickly as stealth would allow. Once safely back on board, they rushed to the bridge where Dr. Quark was waiting anxiously. Well? Zephyr asked, her mismatched eyes intense. Aurora grinned triumphantly. We got it, Doc. Data on their shield frequencies, weapon systems, and bonus, this little guy. She held up the disabled drone. Zephyr's eyes widened. Incredible. Cosmos, Nebula, start analyzing this data immediately, and see if you can reactivate that drone without triggering any alert systems. As the team set to work, Aurora felt a mix of pride and apprehension. They had valuable intelligence now, but at what cost? If their covert mission was discovered, it could derail the entire summit and potentially provoke the very conflict they were trying to avoid. Captain Stormrider, Aria's voice interrupted her thoughts. I'm detecting unusual activity in our computer systems. It appears an unknown program was activated during your mission. Aurora and Zephyr exchanged alarmed looks. Had they inadvertently brought something back with them? Or was this related to General Thanatos' earlier transmission? As alarms began to blare throughout the ship, the crew of the Paradox realized that their problems were far from over. The summit loomed ahead, tensions were at an all-time high, and now an unknown threat was emerging from within their own systems. The cosmic chess game had taken yet another unexpected turn, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. As alarms blared throughout the HSS Paradox, the crew scrambled to identify and contain the unknown program in their systems. Dr. Zephyr Quark, her wild hair even more disheveled than usual, worked feverishly alongside Cosmos' gearshift to isolate the intrusion. It's unlike anything I've ever seen, Cosmos muttered, his cybernetic implants whirring as they interfaced directly with the ship's computers. The code structure is alien, but also ancient somehow. Suddenly, Aria's holographic form flickered to life, her usual calm demeanor replaced by an uncharacteristic urgency. Dr. Quark, I've managed to quarantine the unknown program, but in doing so, I've made a startling discovery. This isn't just a simple virus or Trojan. It's awakening something. Before Zephyr could respond, the main view screen came to life, displaying a cascade of symbols and equations that seemed to defy conventional mathematics. Professor Lexicon Babelbrain's eyes widened as he attempted to decipher the rapidly scrolling information. This is incredible, he breathed. It's some kind of universal language, encoding information about the very fabric of reality itself. As the crew watched in awe, the symbols coalesced into a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Certain areas pulsed with an ominous red light, forming a pattern that spread like a web across the stars. Dr. Fauna Exotica, who had been analyzing the disabled alien drone, suddenly gasped. The drone. It's reactivating, but not like before. It's interfacing with this new data somehow. The drone levitated, projecting its own holographic display that merged with the galactic map. A deep, resonant voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language none of them recognized. Yet somehow, they all understood its meaning. "The harvesters awaken," the voice intoned. "The cycle begins anew. All that is, was, and will be, shall be consumed." Ambassador Xylith's face appeared on a secondary screen, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing with alarm. "By the cosmic elders," it exclaimed, "it can't be. The harvesters were thought to be nothing more than a myth, a cautionary tale from the dawn of our civilization." Commander Vortex Starkiller's visage joined the crowded display, his metallic scales reflecting the tension. "Ambassador, explain. What are these harvesters?" As Xylith began to speak, even General Thanato's Worldbender's ship linked into the communication, the cyborg general's cold eyes showing a flicker of concern. Xylith's voice trembled as it explained, "The harvesters are said to be an ancient race of beings that exist beyond normal space-time. Every few million years, they emerge to consume the energy of entire galaxies, wiping out all life in the process. Our oldest records speak of barely surviving their last incursion, eons ago." Zephyr's mind raced as she processed this information. "But what does this have to do with us? With our FTL drive?" Aria's voice cut through the tension. "Dr. Quark, I believe I understand. The harvesters operate on principles that defy conventional physics. The established FTL methods used by the Concordat and other factions are based on manipulating space-time in ways that the harvesters can easily detect and counteract." Cosmos's eyes widened as he caught on. "But our drive, it doesn't just bend space-time, it punches right through it. It's completely off their radar." General Thanatos, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly spoke. "Are you suggesting that this primitive species might hold the key to combating a threat that has haunted our legends for millennia?" Zephyr stepped forward, her mismatched eyes blazing with determination. "More than that, General. Our approach to physics combining classical theories with quantum mechanics in ways you dismissed it might be the only thing the harvesters aren't prepared for. We're the wild card they never saw coming." A heavy silence fell over the assembled beings, both on the Paradox and across the linked alien ships. The summit they had been preparing for suddenly seemed trivial in the face of this cosmic threat. Ambassador Xylith was the first to break the silence. "Dr. Quark, it seems the galaxy may need humanity more than we realized. Your species' unique perspective, your ability to achieve the impossible, it might be our only hope." Commander Starkiller nodded grimly. "As much as it pains me to admit it, the ambassador is right. We need to pool our resources, combine your unorthodox methods with our advanced technology." Even General Thanatos seemed to have had a change of heart. "Very well. The human vessel will be granted full access to our scientific and military databases. We must prepare for war on a scale none of us have ever imagined." As the alien leaders began discussing strategy, Zephyr turned to her crew. She saw a mix of fear, excitement, and determination on their faces. They had come seeking the stars and found themselves thrust into a battle for the very survival of the galaxy. "Well, team," she said, a wry smile playing on her lips despite the gravity of the situation. "Looks like we've got our work cut out for us. Let's show these cosmic horrors what happens when they mess with humanity and our new alien friends." As the HSS Paradox prepared to take center stage in the coming cosmic conflict, none of them could have imagined the trials and wonders that lay ahead. The fate of not just humanity, but all sentient life in the galaxy, now rested on their shoulders. The greatest adventure in human history was about to begin. The galactic community had barely begun to process the revelation of the ancient threat when the first attacks came. Dr. Zephyr Quark stood on the bridge of the HSS Paradox, her wild hair seeming to crackle with static as she watched the holographic displays in horror. "Aria, give me a status update," she commanded, her mismatched eyes darting between screens showing chaos unfolding across the galaxy. The eye's holographic form flickered with unusual static as it processed vast amounts of incoming data. "Dr. Quark, reports are coming in from multiple sectors. The entities now identified as chronivores have emerged from dormancy and are launching simultaneous attacks on populated worlds. Ambassador Xylith's face appeared on a screen, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing with distress. By the cosmic elders, it's worse than we feared. The chronivores aren't just consuming energy, they're devouring time itself from these worlds. Footage from a Concordat world under attack filled the main view screen. The crew of the Paradox watched in stunned silence as massive, otherworldly entities phased into existence above the planet. These chronivores defied easy description, their forms seemed to shift and change, as if they existed in multiple time states simultaneously. As the aliens' most advanced weaponry proved useless against the invaders, the chronivores began their assault. Beams of impossible energy lanced down from the creatures, and where they struck, time itself seemed to unravel. Buildings aged centuries in seconds, then crumbled to dust. Entire populations flickered and vanished as their timelines were erased from existence. This is genocide on a cosmic scale, Dr. Fauna Exotica whispered, her iridescent eyes wide with horror as her sensors struggled to make sense of the devastation. Commander Vortex Starkiller's voice cut through the shock, his usual bravado replaced by grim determination. All Concordat and allied forces, this is not a drill. Initiate Protocol Omega. We are at war for the survival of all sentient life. As fleets of alien ships mobilized across the galaxy, General Thanato's Worldender's cold, synthetic voice joined the chorus of leaders. Humanity, your moment has come. While our forces buy time, you must weaponize your FTL technology. It is our only hope of striking back against these time devourers. Zephyr felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her shoulders. She turned to her crew, seeing a mix of fear and determination on their faces. All right, team. We've got work to do. Cosmos, Nebula, I need you to start adapting our FTL drive into a weapon system. Fauna, work with the alien scientists to understand the chronivores' biology, if you can call it that. Aurora, coordinate with the alien fleets. We need to buy time. As the crew sprang into action, Professor Lexicon Babelbrain approached Zephyr, his eyes swirling with colors as his mind worked overtime. Dr. Quark, I've been analyzing the chronivores' communication patterns. There's something familiar about it, something that relates to our FTL principles. I think I might be able to decipher their language. Zephyr nodded, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Do it, Professor. Any insight into their nature could be crucial. As the Paradox joined the alien armada, reports of devastation continued to pour in. Entire civilizations were being erased from history, their achievements and very existence devoured by the relentless chronivores. Captain Aurora Stormrider's voice rang out from the helm. Doc, we've got incoming. A chronivore just phased into existence off our port bow. The view screen filled with the mind-bending image of the cosmic horror. Up close, the chronivore was even more terrifying, a writhing mass of temporal energy, its form constantly shifting between past, present, and possible futures. As alien ships around them opened fire to no effect, Zephyr made a split-second decision. Aurora, prepare for an emergency FTL jump. Cosmos, divert all power to the drive. But Doc, Cosmos protested, we haven't tested the modifications yet. No time like the present, Zephyr quipped, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. Sometimes you've got to roll the dice to change the game. Hit it, Aurora. As the chronivores' time-devouring beam lanced towards them, the HSS Paradox vanished in a flash of light, tearing a hole in the fabric of space-time itself. For a brief, terrifying moment, the ship existed outside of normal space-time, in a realm of pure possibility. When they re-emerged, the chronivore was gone, and the nearby space was clear of devastation. What? What just happened? Nebula Stardust asked, her usual calm demeanor shaken. Aria's voice held a note of awe. Preliminary analysis suggests we didn't just evade the chronivores' attack. We erased it from this timeline. A stunned silence fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. They had just stumbled upon a weapon that could fight the chronivores on their own temporal turf. Zephyr's face set with grim determination. "All right, team. Looks like we've found our edge. Now we need to refine it, weaponize it, and teach our allies how to use it. The real battle for the galaxy starts now." As the HSS Paradox prepared to take the fight to the chronivores, none of them could have imagined the mind-bending, reality-warping adventures that lay ahead. Humanity's unique approach to physics was about to be put to the ultimate test, with the fate of all time and space hanging in the balance. The Grand Council chamber of the Concordat's flagship was a sight to behold, its architecture defying human understanding of physics and aesthetics. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered in an unprecedented emergency summit, their diverse forms a testament to the rich tapestry of life now threatened by the chronivores. Dr. Zephyr Quark stood at the center of this alien assembly, her wild hair seeming to crackle with nervous energy. Beside her, Captain Aurora Stormrider and Zenith Money Supernovae flanked her protectively, while Professor Lexicon Bablebrain furiously worked on translations. Ambassador Xylith Zeta 9 called the summit to order, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing with urgency. Esteemed representatives of the galactic community, we face an existential threat unlike any in our recorded history. The chronivores are erasing entire civilizations from the timeline. Our conventional defenses are useless. A cacophony of alien voices filled the chamber, each species expressing fear and desperation in their unique way. Commander Vortex Starkiller's metallic scales flashed as he spoke. "Our combined fleets have engaged the enemy in 12 sectors, but we're being overwhelmed. We need a new strategy, and we need it now." General Thanato's Worldender's cold, synthetic voice cut through the noise. "Perhaps it's time we heard from our unexpected allies. Dr. Quark, you claim to have a solution. Speak." All eyes, stalks, and sensory organs turned to Zephyr. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Distinguished representatives, the key to defeating the chronivores lies in the very technology that brought us here, our unique approach to faster-than-light travel." Holographic displays came to life around her, showing complex equations and diagrams. "Our FTL method doesn't just bend space-time, it punctures through it, creating a state of temporal flux. In our recent encounter with a chronivore, we discovered that this flux state can actually erase them from our timeline." A ripple of astonishment passed through the alien audience. A crystalline being chimed in, its voice a melodious resonance. "But how is this possible? Our most advanced temporal physics can't even touch these creatures." Zephyr nodded, her mismatched eyes gleaming with excitement despite the grave situation. "That's because you've been approaching time and space as separate entities. Our method, combining classical physics with quantum mechanics, treats them as a unified field. The chronivores exist by manipulating this field, but our technology essentially rewrites the rules they operate on." She gestured to Cosmos Gearshift, who had been quietly working on a device. "We propose modifying our FTL drive into a weapon, a temporal disruptor that can target the chronivores and erase them from our reality." The chamber erupted into a mix of hope and skepticism. General Thanatos leaned forward, his cybernetic eyes glowing intensely. "And you believe you can replicate this technology for our fleets, in time to make a difference?" Zephyr hesitated for a moment, then squared her shoulders. "With your advanced manufacturing capabilities and our theoretical framework, yes. But there's a catch. Using this weapon will have unpredictable effects on the timeline. We'll be changing history every time we fire it." A solemn silence fell over the assembly as the implications sank in. Ambassador Xylith's eye stalks quivered as it spoke. "The risks are enormous. We could inadvertently erase our own civilizations in the process of saving them." "But what choice do we have?" Aurora interjected, her neon blue hair seeming to glow with intensity. "The chronivores are already erasing everything. At least this way we have a fighting chance." Zenith Money Supernovae stepped forward, his cybernetic eyes scanning the crowd. "Think of it as an investment in the future of all sentient life. Yes, it's risky, but the potential payoff is the survival of everything we know and love. Professor Babelbrain, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. There's more. In studying the chronivores' communication patterns, I've discovered something astounding. They're not just consuming time, they're speaking it. If we can decipher their temporal language, we might be able to negotiate, or at least understand their motives. This revelation sent another wave of murmurs through the chamber. The idea of communicating with these cosmic horrors was both terrifying and tantalizing. Zephyr raised her hand, calling for attention. Representatives of the galaxy, I know we're asking you to take an enormous leap of faith. Humanity is new to the cosmic stage, and our methods are unorthodox. But right now, we're the best hope for survival. We need your trust, your resources, and your courage. Together, we can fight back against the chronivores and preserve the rich tapestry of life in this galaxy. As she finished speaking, the chamber fell silent. The fate of countless civilizations hung in the balance, with humanity's wild theory standing as the last line of defense against cosmic obliteration. Finally, Ambassador Xylith spoke, its voice carrying the weight of the moment. We will put it to a vote. The motion, to allocate all necessary resources to the human plan and to authorize the use of their temporal disruptor technology, despite the risks to the timeline. All in favor. One by one, representatives of species from across the galaxy signaled their assent. Even General Thanatos, despite his earlier misgivings, gave a curt nod of approval. As the vote concluded, Xylith's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with a mix of hope and trepidation. It is decided. Dr. Quark, the fate of the galaxy now rests in humanity's hands. May the cosmic elders guide us all. As the summit adjourned and preparations for the greatest war in galactic history began, Zephyr turned to her team. She saw in their eyes the same mix of fear, determination, and wild hope that she felt. Well, folks, she said with a wry smile, looks like we've got our work cut out for us. Let's go save reality. Little did they know, as they set out to weaponize their revolutionary technology, that their actions were about to set in motion events that would challenge the very nature of existence itself. The battle against the chronivores was just the beginning of a cosmic adventure beyond their wildest imaginations. In the wake of the emergency summit, a flurry of activity swept across the galaxy. The HSS Paradox became the center of a massive joint operation, with alien scientists and engineers from various species converging to work alongside the human crew. Dr. Zephyr Quark found herself at the helm of this unprecedented collaboration, her wild hair even more disheveled than usual as she coordinated efforts across multiple teams. The Paradox's cargo bay had been transformed into a bustling research and development center, filled with a dizzying array of alien technologies and beings. Cosmos, Zephyr called out, navigating through the organized chaos. How's the integration of our FTL drive with the Concordat's quantum matrices coming along? Cosmos Gearshift looked up from a holographic display, his cybernetic implants whirring as they processed multiple data streams. It's like trying to merge oil and water, Doc, but we're making progress. The crystalline beings from Zeta Reticuli have some fascinating insights on harmonizing conflicting energy signatures. Nearby, Dr. Fauna Exotica was engaged in an animated discussion with a group of alien biologists, her iridescent eyes wide with excitement. The chronivores' temporal biology is unlike anything we've ever encountered, she reported. But we think we've identified a vulnerability in their chrono-metabolic process. Professor Lexicon Babelbrain sat in a corner, surrounded by alien linguists, his eyes a swirl of colors as he worked on deciphering the chronivores' temporal language. It's like trying to understand a sentence spoken backwards, forwards, and inside out simultaneously, he muttered. But we're getting closer to cracking their code. Captain Aurora Stormrider entered the bay, accompanied by Commander Vortex Starkiller and a holographic projection of General Thanatos Worldender. Doc, Aurora called out, her neon blue hair a stark contrast to the serious expressions of her alien counterparts. We need to talk strategy. The chronivores are advancing on the Orion Arm, and we're running out of time. Zephyr nodded grimly and joined the impromptu war council. A holographic map of the galaxy materialized before them, showing the spread of chronivore attacks in real time. Our combined fleets are holding the line in these sectors, Commander Starkiller reported, his metallic scales reflecting the holographic light. But we're losing ground. The chronivores are adapting to our conventional weapons faster than we can develop new ones. General Thanatos's cold, synthetic voice added, "We need to deploy the temporal disruptors as soon as possible. Every moment we delay, more civilizations are being erased from history." Zephyr took a deep breath, feeling the weight of countless lives on her shoulders. "We're close to a breakthrough, but we need to be cautious. One miscalculation with this technology could tear a hole in the fabric of space-time itself." As if on cue, Aria's holographic form materialized. "Dr. Quark, I've completed the simulations you requested. There's a 68% chance that widespread use of the temporal disruptors will cause significant alterations to the timeline. We may be saving the galaxy at the cost of changing its entire history." A heavy silence fell over the group as they grappled with the implications. It was Zenith Munisupernavi who finally broke the tension, his cybernetic eyes glowing with determination. "Sometimes, to save the future, you have to be willing to rewrite the past. I say we take the risk." After a moment of consideration, Zephyr nodded. "Agreed. But we do this smart. We'll form strike teams each led by a human operator familiar with our FTL principles, working alongside the most adaptable alien specialists." She turned to Aurora and the alien commanders. "We'll need your best pilots and tacticians. This isn't just about firepower. It's about navigating the currents of space-time itself." Commander Starkiller nodded, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. "I'll assemble a team of our most elite temporal navigators. They've trained for years to understand the flow of time, even if they've never been able to manipulate it like this before." General Thanatos, despite his earlier misgivings about humanity, seemed to have had a change of heart. "My cyborg troops are at your disposal, Dr. Quark. Their enhanced processing capabilities may prove useful in calculating temporal trajectories on the fly." As the plans took shape, a sense of cautious hope began to spread through the assembled beings. They were about to embark on a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen, a battle not just across space, but across time itself. Zephyr looked around at the diverse group of humans and aliens working together, united against a common threat. "All right, everyone," she said, her voice carrying a mix of determination and wonder. "Let's make history or remake it, as the case may be." As the joint task force began to mobilize, equipping ships with the experimental temporal disruptors and training crews in the intricacies of chrono combat, none of them could have predicted the mind-bending challenges that lay ahead. They were about to dive into the depths of time and space, facing paradoxes, alternate realities, and the very nature of existence itself. The battle against the chronivores was about to begin in earnest, with the fate of all reality hanging in the balance, and at the center of it all was the crew of the HSS Paradox, their impossible FTL drive now the linchpin in the greatest conflict the universe had ever known. The battle raged across the Orion Arm, a spectacle of cosmic proportions that defied conventional understanding of warfare. The HSS Paradox led a fleet of hybrid ships, each equipped with humanity's revolutionary temporal disruptors alongside the most advanced alien technologies. Dr. Zephyr Quark stood on the bridge of the Paradox, her wild hair crackling with static electricity as she coordinated the assault. Holographic displays surrounded her, showing the mind-bending chaos of the battle unfolding across multiple timelines simultaneously. "Chronivore cluster detected in Sector 7G, Captain Aurora Stormrider called out, her hands dancing over the controls. "They're attempting to devour the Pleiades civilization." Zephyr's mismatched eyes narrowed as she assessed the situation. "Aurora, take us in. Cosmos, charge the temporal disruptor. Let's show these time eaters what humanity's got." The Paradox surged forward, its FTL drive humming with power. Around them, alien ships moved in complex formations, their advanced shielding technology protecting them from the Chronovore's time distortion fields. As they approached the Chronovore cluster, the true scale of the threat became apparent. The cosmic horrors towered over planets, their forms shifting and warping reality itself. Beams of chronometric energy lanced out, erasing matter and time indiscriminately. Concordat cruisers, form up on our flanks, Commander Vortex Starkiller's voice crackled over the comms. Prepare to provide cover fire. The alien ships responded with precision, their quantum-phased weapons creating pockets of stable space-time around the fleet. It wasn't enough to harm the Chronovores, but it gave the human ships the opening they needed. Now, Cosmos, Zephyr shouted. Cosmos gearshift, his cybernetic implants glowing with effort, activated the temporal disruptor. A beam of impossible energy shot forth from the paradox, tearing through the fabric of reality itself. Where it struck a chronovore, the cosmic horror seemed to unravel, its timeline collapsing in on itself. Direct hit, Aurora whooped. One chronovore down. But their victory was short-lived. The remaining chronovores, sensing the threat, turned their full attention to the fleet. Time itself began to warp around them, with past, present, and future colliding in a kaleidoscope of possibility. Shields failing, Nebula Stardust called out, her usual calm demeanor cracking under the strain. The temporal flux is overloading our systems. Just as it seemed the paradox might be torn apart by the conflicting timelines, a squadron of General Thanatos Worldender's cyborg fighters swooped in. Their hybrid technology, combining human FTL principles with advanced AI, allowed them to navigate the chaotic time streams with uncanny precision. Your assistance is appreciated, humans, Thanatos' cold voice came through. Now, let us show you how the Outer Rim deals with cosmic threats. The cyborg ships unleashed a barrage of chronotorpedoes, weapons that existed in multiple states of time simultaneously. Where they struck, chronovores found themselves trapped in temporal loops, unable to devour or destroy. Dr. Fauna Exotica, monitoring the battle from her specialized xenobiology station, suddenly called out. On detecting a change in the chronovore's energy signatures, they're adapting. True to her words, the cosmic horrors began to shift their tactics. Some phased out of normal space-time entirely, becoming invulnerable to the fleet's weapons. Others started to replicate, splitting into multiple versions of themselves from different points in their timeline. This is bad, Professor Lexicon Babelbrain muttered, his eyes swirling with colors as he attempted to decipher the chronovore's temporal language. They're communicating across time itself, warning their past selves of our tactics. Zephyr's mind raced, trying to find a solution. If they can communicate across time, so can we. Area, can you use our FTL principles to send a message to our past selves, warning us of the chronovore's adaptations? The eye's holographic form flickered as it processed the request. It's theoretically possible, Dr. Quark, but the risks of creating a temporal paradox are extreme. At this point, a paradox might be our only hope, Zephyr decided. Do it. As Area worked to send a message across time, the battle reached a fever pitch. Human ingenuity and alien technology clashed against the cosmic might of the chronovores. Ships blinked in and out of existence as timelines were rewritten. Entire star systems vanished and reappeared as the fabric of reality was torn and mended. In the midst of the chaos, the paradox's sensors detected something unexpected. A massive surge of energy, unlike anything they'd ever seen, was building at the heart of the chronovore swarm. Whatever they're doing, it's big, Aurora shouted over the din of battle. We need to stop them now, or we might lose the entire galaxy. Zephyr made a split-second decision. All ships, concentrate fire on these coordinates. Put everything you've got into one massive temporal burst. As the combined fleet unleashed their most powerful assault yet, time and space themselves seemed to hold their breath. For a moment that stretched into eternity, the outcome hung in the balance. Then, with a flash of light that outshone suns, the heart of the chronovore swarm collapsed in on itself. A shockwave of temporal energy swept across the battlefield, rewriting reality in its wake. As the light faded and the time stream settled, the crew of the Paradox found themselves in a strangely altered galaxy. The chronivores were gone, but so too were familiar star systems and civilizations. New worlds and species had taken their place, born from the chaos of the temporal war. Zephyr looked out at the changed cosmos, a mix of awe and trepidation on her face. "Well, team," she said softly, "looks like we saved reality. The question is, what reality have we saved?" As reports began to flood in from across the galaxy, detailing the changes wrought by their desperate gambit, the crew of the HSS Paradox realized that their adventure was far from over. They had won the battle against the chronivores, but in doing so, they had set the stage for an even greater challenge, navigating the consequences of their actions in a fundamentally altered universe. The cosmic chess game had entered a new phase, with humanity now a central player in a galaxy reborn. The true scope of their journey was only just beginning to unfold. As the altered galaxy settled into its new configuration, the crew of the HSS Paradox found themselves grappling with the consequences of their actions. The chronivores, while diminished, had not been entirely defeated. Instead, they had retreated to a nexus point in space-time, gathering their strength for one final, catastrophic assault. Dr. Zephyr Quark stood on the bridge of the Paradox, her wild hair seeming to crackle with the energy of 1,000 suns. Holographic displays surrounded her, showing the convergence of chronivore forces at the heart of the galaxy. "This is it, team," she said, her mismatched eyes scanning the faces of her crew and alien allies. "Everything we've fought for comes down to this moment." Suddenly, Aria's holographic form flickered to life, an unusual urgency in her voice. "Dr. Quark, we're receiving a transmission. It's from Earth." Zephyr's heart skipped a beat. "Put it through, Aria." The main view screen came to life, revealing a face that made Zephyr's breath catch in her throat. It was Lyra Quasar, her daughter, looking older and more determined than when they'd last parted. "Mom," Lyra said, her voice tight with emotion, "I know you're facing something big out there. I've been studying your work, and I think I've found something that might help." As Lyra began to explain her insights, Zephyr felt a surge of pride and wonder. Her daughter had taken her theories and pushed them even further, combining them with cutting-edge research from Earth in ways Zephyr hadn't considered. "You see," Lyra continued, her eyes a mirror of Zephyr's own heterochromia gleaming with excitement, "the chronivores aren't just consuming time. They're trying to reset the universe to a state of pure potential. But what if we could use that against them?" Zephyr's mind raced as she grasped the implications of Lyra's theory. "Of course," she exclaimed. "We've been fighting them on their terms, but if we could harness that potential energy, we could create a temporal feedback loop," Lyra finished, "forcing them to confront the infinite possibilities of their own existence." The bridge erupted into a flurry of activity as the crew and their alien allies worked to incorporate Lyra's insights into their battle plan. Cosmos Gearshift's cybernetic implants whirred as he recalibrated the temporal disruptors. Dr. Fauna Exotica and the alien scientists hurried to adjust their understanding of chronivore biology. As the final preparations were made, Zephyr turned back to the screen, her eyes meeting Lyra's. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'm so proud of you, Lyra. When this is over." Lyra nodded, understanding in her eyes. "We'll have a lot to talk about. Go save the universe, Mom. I'll be waiting." With renewed determination, the HSS Paradox led the combined fleet towards the heart of the galaxy. The scene that greeted them was beyond comprehension, a swirling maelstrom of time and space, with the chronivores at its center, their forms now colossal and reality warping. "All ships, assume attack formation," Commander Vortex Starkiller's voice rang out. "Remember your training and trust in the humans' technology." As the battle began, it quickly became apparent that this was unlike anything they'd faced before. The chronivores, in their desperation, were tearing apart the very fabric of reality. Entire star systems blinked in and out of existence. Time flowed backwards and forwards, sometimes simultaneously. "Cosmos, status on the modified temporal disruptor," Zephyr called out over the chaos. "It's ready, Doc," Cosmos shouted back. "But we've only got one shot at this. If we miss—" Zephyr nodded grimly. "Then we don't miss. Aurora, take us in closer. We need to be at the heart of that temporal storm." Captain Aurora Stormrider's hands danced over the controls, her neon blue hair standing on end from the temporal energies surging around them. "You got it, Doc. Hang on to your atoms, everyone." As the paradox plunged deeper into the maelstrom, reality itself seemed to break down. The crew experienced multiple versions of themselves, past and future, all existing simultaneously. Through it all, Zephyr remained focused, her brilliant mind working overtime to calculate the perfect moment to strike. "Now, Cosmos," she shouted as they reached the eye of the storm. "Fire the disruptor." A beam of impossible energy shot forth from the paradox, infused with the combined brilliance of Zephyr and Lyra's theories. It struck the heart of the chronivore convergence, and for a moment everything stopped. Then, with a flash that outshone the birth of galaxies, the temporal energy exploded outward. The chronivores found themselves caught in an infinite loop of potential, forced to confront every possible version of themselves across all timelines. As reality reasserted itself, the chronivores began to fade, their forms dissolving into the time stream. The threat that had loomed over the galaxy for eons was finally, truly defeated. In the aftermath, as the combined fleet regrouped and began to assess the changes to the universe, Zephyr stood at the viewscreen, gazing out at the altered cosmos. The galaxy had been transformed, not just by the battle, but by the unprecedented cooperation between humans and aliens. "Well, folks," she said, turning to her crew with a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration, "looks like we've got a whole new universe to explore. And this time, we're not alone." As congratulations and celebrations erupted across the fleet, Zephyr's thoughts turned to Earth, to Lyra, and to the future that now stretched out before them, a future filled with infinite possibilities, new alliances, and adventures beyond imagination. The HSS Paradox had lived up to its name, changing the very nature of reality. And as they prepared to chart a course for home, Zephyr knew that this was not the end of their journey, but merely the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure among the stars. In the weeks and months following the defeat of the chronivores, the galaxy entered a period of unprecedented change and adaptation. The HSS Paradox, once an anomaly in the cosmic order, now found itself at the center of a galactic renaissance. Dr. Zephyr Quark stood before the newly formed Galactic Council, her wild hair somewhat tamed for the occasion, but her mismatched eyes still sparkling with the excitement of discovery. The council chamber was a marvel of alien architecture, with representatives from countless species in attendance, both physically and via advanced holographic projections. "Distinguished members of the council," Zephyr began, her voice carrying across the chamber, "the recent conflict has shown us that the universe is far more complex and interconnected than any of us realized. Humanity's outdated physics, combined with your advanced technologies, has opened up possibilities we're only beginning to understand." Ambassador Xylith Zeta 9, now serving as the head of the council, nodded its eye stalks in agreement. "Indeed, Dr. Quark, your species' unique approach to faster-than-light travel has fundamentally altered our understanding of space-time. We find ourselves in a new era of exploration and discovery." Commander Vortex Starkiller, his metallic scales gleaming, added, "The military implications alone are staggering. Our defense strategies are being completely overhauled to incorporate human FTL principles. We're developing new methods of patrolling and protecting our borders that were unimaginable just a short time ago." As the council discussed the ramifications of humanity's contributions, Zephyr couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and wonder. The galaxy was transforming before their eyes, with new trade routes, diplomatic channels, and scientific collaborations forming at an unprecedented rate. Back on the Paradox, the crew was busy adapting to their new role as ambassadors of human ingenuity. Cosmos Gearshift found himself leading seminars on the integration of classical physics and quantum mechanics, his cybernetic implants working overtime to translate complex theories for diverse alien audiences. Dr. Fauna Exotica was in her element, working with a team of xenobiologists to study the biological effects of FTL travel on different species. Her research was paving the way for safer and more efficient interstellar travel for all. Professor Lexicon Babelbrain had become a central figure in a massive collaborative effort to develop a new, universal language that could bridge the communication gaps between vastly different species. His insights into the temporal language of the chronivores were proving invaluable in creating a mode of communication that transcended traditional barriers. Captain Aurora Stormrider, meanwhile, was busy training a new generation of pilots from various species in the art of navigating the complex realities of FTL space. Her unorthodox methods and daring maneuvers were quickly becoming legendary across the galaxy. As for Zephyr herself, she found her days filled with a whirlwind of scientific conferences, diplomatic meetings, and groundbreaking experiments. But amidst it all, she made sure to carve out time for regular video calls with Lyra back on Earth. Their relationship, once strained by distance and misunderstanding, was blossoming into a true partnership of brilliant minds. One evening, as Zephyr was reviewing plans for a new type of space station that could exist in multiple points in space-time simultaneously, she received an urgent message from General Thanatos Worldender. Dr. Quark, the cyborg's face appeared on her screen, its usual coldness tempered by what might have been excitement. We've detected something unusual at the edge of the galaxy, a region of space that doesn't conform to any known laws of physics. We believe it may be a gateway to somewhere else. Zephyr felt a familiar thrill of excitement run through her. A gateway? To where? Thanatos' cybernetic eyes glowed intensely. That's just it, Doctor. We don't know. But given humanity's knack for achieving the impossible, we thought you and your crew might be interested in leading an expedition to find out. As Zephyr considered the implications of this discovery, she couldn't help but smile. Just when they thought they had begun to understand the universe, it threw them another curveball. The adventure, it seemed, was far from over. General, she said, her eyes gleaming with anticipation, tell the Council to prep the Paradox. We've got a new frontier to explore. As news of the mysterious gateway spread, the galaxy once again buzzed with excitement and trepidation. Humanity, once an isolated species on a small blue planet, now stood at the forefront of the greatest expedition in cosmic history. Their outdated physics had not only saved the galaxy, but was now poised to unlock the secrets of the multiverse itself. The HSS Paradox and its crew, along with their diverse array of alien allies, prepared to embark on a journey that would push the boundaries of reality even further. As they set course for the unknown, Zephyr couldn't help but think that the name of their ship had never been more appropriate. They were indeed a paradox, a small, young species whose old ideas had revolutionized the thinking of ancient civilizations. The galaxy watched and waited, holding its collective breath as humanity prepared to take its next giant leap into the cosmic unknown. Whatever lay beyond that gateway, one thing was certain: the universe would never be the same again.